You okay for this?
All right, now I'm live.
Nice.
All
Okay.
right.
But before anything, Redeem, do you mind, like, since if it's a YouTuber, do you mind like him recording the debate, or is that
Sure,
con-
if he wants to, yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, it's fine with me.
okay? So, welcome everybody. This is our first like all participant debate. We are having we're having Texan, Redeem, Sifis, Prophet, and so the first questions are: who are you? Where are you from? What celebrity you represent? What is your stance on this? And why do you believe in it? So I'm going to start with you, Redeemed, and then we go to Tex, and then we go to Prophet, and then we go to Sifis. So,
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Joseph. I'm from Oxford in the UK. I am a Christian because I was brought up and raised Christian, and I've studied theology for quite a bit of time. So I've come to understand that it is the correct way of explaining the world, and that the Bible is infallible, and that is clearly the word of God, and the Christian lifestyle, the best lifestyle to live in.
okay. Texan, your name, where are you from? What is your stance on the issue?
Can you guys hear
And
me
why do you
right?
believe in it? Yep.
Right. My name is Winton. I am a Christian, a believer. I live in Texas. And what was the other question? I'm so sorry.
What's your
No, and why
ideology?
do you believe?
Oh, my theology.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm a Christian, non-denominational. I do not believe in any denomination. I rely solely on the Word of God as a whole.
What is it? So knowledge. Tell us about yourself.
OG Party Pigeon. I don't believe in any religion. I don't believe in most of the science on this planet. I'm also a member of an extra-dimensional military organization called the Silver Legion, where you're helping this planet free itself and eliminate the pedophiles and stuff. I can actually tell people with proof that none of the stuff you all believe in is real. There's no God. Science is truly, it's not real either. The Big Bang is a theory that will never be proven because it's fake. But that's just a small part of it.
Okay.
Done.
Okay. Sifis, what is it? Oh, by the way, before we get to Sifis, this is gonna be a per question basis. So we're gonna switch out people. So we're gonna be like, okay, so this is like, let's say I say, where's the proof of God, or where's the morality come from, or which is morally ethical. We can go. We're gonna switch out people. So for each question, so like this is gonna be like unless there's no more atheists or there's no more theists, we're gonna stick with the same people.
Are we not gonna have a back and forth?
Yeah, we're gonna have a back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah, but like within the same question, you know. So like, let's say we're done with this question, we're gonna go on for like 30, 45 minutes, and then we're gonna switch out for other people. Like let's say Arya, who I'm assuming is an atheist, or like let's say Marcellus, who is a Muslim. We can switch them out for the next question. So everybody gets like kind of gets like a participation
No problem.
going on. All right.
Yeah, man.
So let's see where does morality come from?
Wait, you kind of skipped me. Yeah, you didn't. I didn't get my.
Oh
my...
yeah, forgive me. Sorry.
No problem.
So
No
sorry.
problem. I was just gonna say that I think that religion is pretty interesting. You know, in the end of the day, I feel like there's a lot you can learn from it, and there's a lot of things that you can apply it to from the stories within a lot of these holy books in real life that can help you. But I feel like in the end of the day, whether or not I'm going to ever call myself a Christian or a religious person really is based off of whether or not God exists. You know, I feel like that is always going to be the first question that I'm always going to ask, whether or not I ever going to join a religion. And I feel like if you guys, and from all the debates that I've had, it seems like most Christians are unable to give me any evidence that I feel like is enough to substantiate the belief that God exists. So, but then not only do Christians say, oh, not only does God exist without any evidence, but he has these features and he has all these beliefs. And if you don't believe this, you're going to go here. And if you believe this, you're going to go here. And yeah, that's, I guess, my issue with a lot of like Christians. And so, yeah, I would say that I'm an atheist. I don't really know, or / agnostic atheist, as in I don't really know if there is a God. Nor do I believe that there isn't a God. Like I have no real, I don't really know. Only evidence could convince me.
So we're not. So for this question, we're going to go to, where does morality come from? Does it come from God? Does it come from man? Where do you guys believe it starts off? So I'm going to start with redeemed, and what is it? And then we can go on to Pacific, and then we go on to Texan, and then we go on to knowledge, because it's just gonna be a back and forth. But you're not gonna debate yet. You're just gonna like state where do you think the position lies, and why do you think that? You know.
I'm wearing sunglasses because I think I look cool in them. All right.
I believe that morality comes from God. God's law is written on our hearts. No man is without excuse. No man is without excuse. I believe that morality comes obviously from God, and I think if you look at the world around you, you will notice that morality is all the same.
Thanks for the like.
Every human being. Now you would say to that, but people disagree. But no, what they actually disagree upon is what counts as moral or not. For example, if you look at the issue of abortion, some people think abortion is moral, some people don't. But the people who are okay with abortion, they don't say, yeah, it's murder, but it's fine. No, they say it's not murder, and that's their justification for it. But they can both agree the murder is wrong, but the people who justify it say that it's not murder. And so I think if you look across the world, you can clearly see that morality is the same amongst everyone, but people try and justify it differently. So I would say the morality comes from God, and that the best way to find out what is moral and what isn't is to look at the Bible. Because if you believe that morality is just a man-made concept, then nothing's really bad and nothing's really wrong. You can't say that, Hitler was actually wrong, because that's just your opinion. And in Hitler's opinion, he wasn't wrong. So there you go. Without God, everything is subjective. And so no one's actually done anything wrong, and no one's ever done anything right. So you cannot sit here and say that anyone's done anything bad. So that's why I'd say you have to have the Bible as a moral guidance, because otherwise there's no such thing as morality, and therefore you are justified in doing anything. And so that would be my main points, I guess.
All right, Sifis, no rebuttals just yet. What do you believe? Like, do you believe morality comes from man? Do you believe morality comes from God? Why do you believe it? Why? What do you believe in? Why do you believe in that?
Yeah, I believe that morality, in the end of the day, is subjective. I feel like the morals that we've gotten, I would say that a lot of the morals that we believe in America, stem from religious beliefs from a long time ago. But I don't really think that actually means that God created it, or that God is responsible for the morals that we have today. I think the reason why we have the ideologies and the morals that we have today is because over time we sort of realize that we're better off not murdering other people, that we're better off not enslaving other people, we're better off trading with each other, and based off of basically the fact that we are much more prosperous from not doing those things. And that's where I think morality comes from. Generally, it comes from a whole bunch of people sort of agreeing together that they're not going to do certain things or allow certain things, because they believe that if we all sort of agree to these rules, generally, as a society, we are sort of better off. I don't think that sort of comes from a God. I think that just comes from trial and error over thousands of years between humans sort of interacting with each other.
Can I answer that too?
We're gonna go to text, and then we go to knowledge. So it's just back and forth between both sides. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you, gents. So, Christianity, or religion in all sense, it comes from something, and I always tell folks that it comes from faith, and that faith is the belief in things that you cannot see. And so everybody's going to have their own opinion on things, and everybody's going to have a certain way they view moral principles, like Redeemed Christian here was talking about earlier. When it comes to the belief in a God, I believe that all nations, at some point, it doesn't matter, and you can't really argue against that all nations at some point believed in a God, right? And in the case for the United States, the Judeo-Christian values that our Constitution and that our country is based upon has proved successful. And this is the reason why every single other nation that tried to copy what we did failed miserably, because they did not have those moral principles. The Bible, the laws of man and the Bible is very similar in many ways. If for those of you who study law, for those of you who examine it, you're going to see that's very similar, and that they really picked from the scriptures. And now many people are going to try to discredit God and be like, it was my own inspiration, but by the end of the day, it's not. I mean, you're not going to explain to me that we just randomly appeared on Earth, which tends to be the common argument for most atheists. I believe we have a conscience, and our conscience often reproaches us for something when we're wrong, and that signifies that there has to be a creator, there has to be a greater being. And when it comes to morality, for atheists, when you're atheist, you don't believe in a God. Nobody tells you what is right, nobody tells you what is wrong. As a matter of fact, atheists often like to lie to themselves by telling them that, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in a God. Well, let me tell you something. The God in this situation is yourself. When you refuse to believe in a higher being than yourself, you are your own God. You dictate your life. You tell yourself what is right and what is wrong. You make decisions, and there is no higher creator to make that decision for you. But if you're, let's say, Muslim, or you're Christian, or you're Buddhist, or whatever, you have to submit yourself to scripture. Whatever that scripture may be, you have to submit yourself to that. And when you submit yourself to that scripture, you are less prone to commit evil than if you were atheist. Because an atheist can go and say, you know what? Generally speaking, many people think that theft should be criminalized, or maybe rape should be criminalized. But since I'm atheist, who's gonna tell me what's right and wrong? Like, who's gonna submit me to that, right? I can come up with my own theory, I can come up with my own doctrine, with my own judicial system, or judicial theory. However, when you submit yourself to a creator, you can't reason. If you reason, then it's considered sin, and you must submit yourself to things. So my argument, this is going to be the base of my argument throughout this entire debate, that atheists, there's no such thing as atheism, actually. I believe that there is just a belief in yourself, the sole worship of yourself, considering yourself to be God. And yeah, that's my point.
Okay, knowledge. So, where do you think morality comes from? And
Okay, we're gonna keep going. Okay, well, all right. When you look at morality, most people, they'll take it from religion, or they'll take it from laws we have. But a lot of people don't know we've had morals before we had Christianity. That's in other religions too. Now, when you say that your morals came from God, what morals exactly are you talking about?
wait. Not no, we're not debating you right just yet. We're talking about just where do you rely on? Where do you?
Oh, okay.
Where's your stance?
Yeah. What do you believe in? Then after that, we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, and then we'll go back and forth.
I believe in doing no harm to anything else. That's what I believe. It should be simple. Don't kill people. Don't steal people. Don't steal from people. Stuff like that. Don't harm people. Don't do anything that you don't want to happen to you. Like, don't lie to people. Steal money out from people. I'm not gonna say that. Just don't be an asshole. Eventually.
Yeah, and where do you think morality comes from?
Now that's a hard thing. Like, I truly believe it comes from people with good intentions, and they see society for what it is, and they want the society to, which is why they create laws telling you not to do things, not to kill people, not to harm people, stuff like that. Mainly, it comes from the mind, the intelligence. That's
Mhm.
all.
Okay. So let's say, so I guess we can start off. We can start off with redeem. So, do you think there's
Wait,
some
are we not
things
doing
that
a back and
are?
forth or?
Yeah, we're gonna do a back and forth. Yeah, just refute. Okay. Uh, but yeah, I mean that's fine with me. You just go back and forth right now if you want. So
Okay.
redeem, you start off, and then if whoever wants to go afterward, that's fine.
All right.
Okay. So, Prophet Pigeon said that morality comes from people with good intentions. But I'd ask you, what is good? Define good.
Good. Essentially, doing something that helps somebody else, that doesn't harm something else, and generally something that somebody would thank you for. Like, say, if somebody needs help, like if an old lady, she's like 5 foot tall, she's in the store, and she can't reach the top shelf on the aisle, you could help her. That's doing something good for her. That's being nice too. Somebody who's slipping, falling off ice, you don't laugh at them, you help them up. You hold a door for someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple things like that.
Okay, so that'd be your definition of good would be if it helps somebody else. Then you would say, okay, interesting. But okay, so I suppose I would say to that is that can be a general rule, but then what would you say about greater good then? If I was to say like do something bad to someone but it helps everyone else in the end, would you say that's like how would you prioritize what kind of goodness like? Because it seems very sort of subjective, the kind of examples you kind of gave.
Well, a
Well,
morality is subjective.
Well, if it's subjective, then how can we arrest people for? How can we make a legal system around it? Like,
Because
music is subjective. Like, we don't arrest someone based on what song they have. But if someone breaks our moral code, we arrest them and put them in jail for the rest of their lives. It seems very, very foolish to arrest someone over a subjective thing.
yeah, so the thing is, morals, basically, our laws are based off of what most of the people within that country believe, and our morals are kind of what most of us sort of believe is based off of what is sort of better for most people. And at least in the United States, we've sort of realized that allowing people to have freedom to do what they want as long as they're not harming another person, allowing people to sort of do those things makes us better off, in general. So that's why we don't break people's rights, because we've realized that by violating one person, allowing one person to violate another person's rights, then you're basically open season for anybody to violate another person's rights. So because of those lessons, we've sort of created a law structure over the general morals that people have.
Okay,
Can I
so
interject?
I think it's mainly based on what the majority opinion is.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, so you wouldn't judge another country then if they had a different moral opinion to you then,
Not
overall?
not necessarily. No, because the thing is, right? What we think is good in our country can be completely different in another country. You know what I'm saying? So in say an Islamic country, I may not agree that with the way that they treat their women, but what am I supposed to do? Go over there and start a war with them in order to force them to be my beliefs? No, I'm not. I don't believe in that.
Okay, so you would just say then for morality overall, just majority rules, whatever, as long as the majority think it's okay, then it's okay then.
And well, in individual countries, that's generally how it works. See, in America,
it is how it works.
yeah,
How it should work.
in America, see, most people don't believe it's okay to steal from people. Most people don't think it's okay to murder from people. Most people don't think it's okay to commit fraud. So, because most people believe that it's not okay, well, it's not that we believe it's not okay. We've seen the effects of people committing those crimes on other people, and we see the ramifications, and we realize that allowing people to do that have negative ramifications. And because of that, we decided to create laws outlawing those things. If people thought it was okay to steal from other people, well, there wouldn't be a law.
That's the thing.
Yeah, well,
Who decides if it's moral or not?
We do.
Because that's the majority of the people, but not everybody's gonna think like that. So that's your personal opinion. That's your personal sentiment.
Yeah, it is. It's all of our personal opinions. That's
So
what
your
morality
personal
comes
sentiment, your personal sentiment is not morality, because if you travel half the world around to many Middle Eastern countries, I'm talking about the radical Islamist ones, they marry, like I just told one of the people in the chat, they marry their 12-year-olds to their fighters. And I know how you mentioned about the women there, and you wouldn't start a war, which is reasonable. But would you call their actions moral? Would you say that's
from. No,
actually
I would
moral
say they're
action?
immoral. I would say that's immoral.
And you think they're immoral because because that's your opinion. That's
Yeah,
how you view
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, not because it doesn't come from God. It comes from my opinion.
And that actually circles back to my point that you are your own God, because you are deciding that that's immoral because you think it's like that, but other people will disagree with you.
Yeah, you could put it that way, but the thing is, my opinion in the end of the day is that my morality is based off of my subjective beliefs. I don't believe that it's okay to marry off children to soldier men, but in that country, they think it's okay to do that. That's why it's legal there, and because a lot of people there may think it's okay. I'm not sure. I really have no idea. I don't know much about the Middle East, but in America, we do not think that's okay. Most people would agree. I'm sure most people in this Discord would agree that that's not okay. So that's why we have laws against it.
I'd agree it's not okay, of
Yeah.
course. But it circles back to my point. I mean, I'm not advocating for that. So let's make it clear. All I'm saying is that where's the
do you
morality come from?
think?
Because
but let me ask you a question if it's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So why do you think that rape is wrong, or murder is wrong?
I think that murder is wrong because, like I said, faith, the belief in things we cannot see. So it's going to be very difficult for me to explain, because Christianity is submitting yourself to a God is not just something that you do for the pleasure of doing. It's actually a personal relationship that is.
Yeah. Listen, you're kind of rambling. Why do you think that murder is wrong?
I think that murder is wrong because God instructed us not to kill others.
So let's say some way I had in a hypothetical world, I would prove to you that God absolutely does not exist. Then you would cease to believe that murder is wrong?
It depends on the context. Like, if humans always want to worship a greater being, because then if that were the case, then you would also have to change the human sentiment. Humans always want to submit.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the same
creator.
question again, okay? Because you're not really answering, okay? So the question is, if I were to prove, let's say in a hypothetical world, I were to prove to you that God absolutely doesn't exist, would you then cease to believe that murder is no longer wrong?
Probably.
Yeah?
Probably. All the other people around me, I do believe that humans generally believe that murder is wrong because I think there's a creator. That's my theory. Without a creator, the world is chaotic. The world doesn't have any more sense. So that question is pretty twitch, because if there's no God, if you were to prove to me that there's no God and you were actually able to do that, and then I would to believe that there's no God, if there's no God, the world goes to shit.
Yeah. So what about countries that are majority atheist? They also believe, so like Sweden or the Nordic countries, some of the Nordic countries that have a lot of atheists there, right? Canada and even United States has a lot of atheists. You know what I'm saying?
No, the
United States hold on. Let me ask. I know, I got you. I know, but I said that's why I said we have a lot, not all of them. But there are countries that have a large amounts of atheists, and I would argue that most of those atheists, despite the fact that they don't believe in God, still believes that murder is wrong. So where do you think they get that from?
I don't believe in atheism. I believe in self-worship. The reason why people think murder is wrong is because you wouldn't randomly go to somebody and take away their life, right? There must be a sentiment behind it, which is the most case. Like, maybe you're going to rob somebody, or you're angry and you want to take out your anger and you're going to do something to them. That's where murder comes from. It can come from jealousy, it can come from envy, etc., etc. But there's still a moral standpoint telling you that, look, murder is wrong, and I do believe that it comes from a creator. And all countries at some point submitted themselves to a creator, and it wasn't necessarily Christianity. There was many other religions.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you the same question. All right, so the question was, you see majority countries. There's some countries that have majority atheist populations, and a lot of those people also agree that murder is wrong.
You didn't list me the countries though.
Oh, there's like there's like the Nordic country. I'm pretty sure Sweden has a lot of majority.
Nordic countries. I know a lot of people from Nordic countries, and they tell me themselves that either they're Catholic, Protestant, or they are atheists.
Yeah, but you would agree that they have a lot of atheists, right?
I wouldn't say that. And like I said, I don't believe.
I mean, okay, so let's say in a hypothetical land, there's a whole bunch of atheists there, and they all agree that. I mean, would you not agree that most atheists think that murder is wrong? Like, you don't agree to that?
Most atheists would agree.
Okay,
but the argument though is where does a moral standpoint come from?
Yeah, where does that come? Where do you think that moral standpoint comes from?
I believe that
if they don't believe in God.
I believe it comes from a creator. You want to lie? Like I said, most
they don't have
atheists,
one. Yeah, they don't believe in one.
That's the thing.
Well, if I may interject for a moment for Texan, it says in Romans chapter 1, verse 20, it says, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by these things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so they are without excuse. Now, what this means is that God has written his law onto the hearts of every individual. And so even if they are atheists, they still have that innate moral code within them, which is why if you look across the whole world, you will find uncontacted tribes who have never associated with any other human beings, and they still have a very, very similar, if not identical, moral code to other countries.
I can argue against that.
Yeah, so...
before we have to find... Hold on,
yeah, go ahead.
Before we find the people in Papua New Guinea, they were literally eating each other. And that happens in almost every single native tribe we find today. They're eating each other, they're murdering each other, taking each other's wives and children as sex slaves. So where's the morality in that?
There's no morality in that. That's absolutely wicked and sinful, which is why human beings have a sinful nature.
Yeah, you just reaffirmed it.
If they had morality, they wouldn't be doing that.
And the thing is, my problem with that is, right, you guys are Christian, right? Yeah. Yes. So simply believing in God isn't the only prerequisite to going to heaven, right?
It's actually applying what God says.
Okay, so believing in God isn't the only prerequisite in order to get to heaven, right?
Well, that would depend on which Christian denomination you're a part of. I'm a Protestant. I believe
that's an obvious yes. That's an obvious being Christian.
I believe no. I believe that faith in God is the only way to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Don't you as a Christian have to believe that Jesus Christ raised from the dead and is the Son of God in order to get to heaven?
Not all denominations
believe in that. Yes.
Okay, so if you don't believe in that, simply believing in God alone isn't going to get you into heaven. You also have to accept Jesus Christ, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so believing in God isn't the only prerequisite for going to heaven under Christianity, correct?
Believing in a God, no.
Okay, there you go. Okay, there you go. So therefore, those uncontacted tribes that don't believe in Jesus are going to go to hell, right?
It depends, again, on which view you hold. There are some verses, I can't
What do you think?
The exact quotes. Yeah, well, I would say, I can't remember the exact quotes, but actually, no, Jesus did say that if you are blind, you would be without sin. But because you say you see, your sin remains. So what he's saying is that if you are blind, you would be without sin. And so if these contacted tribes, God can look into their hearts. And so maybe they've never heard the gospel, but God can look into their hearts and see whether they would accept him or not.
Yeah, but doesn't that contradict your earlier statement when you said that all God's word is written in each and everyone's heart? So wouldn't they know about Jesus if that was true?
No, when I said that, I meant the law of God, as in the moral code. I didn't mean the actual gospel story.
Yeah, but like what Prophet said earlier, there are some uncontacted tribes. They believe in God, but they do some pretty heinous things to each other, like what he was mentioning earlier.
Man has a fallen nature.
Yeah, so
man's instincts conflict with man's morality. So we have morality, but we also have our instincts, and those two things collide to go against.
So then you're contradicting. You're contradicting your earlier statement that they must not know God's morality. Then
hold on. I also hate how you generalize.
You can still do something morally wrong while still thinking it's wrong. Like me, I've done things in the past.
Do you
which
think
I
those
regret,
people
and I
think
knew
it
at the time
wasn't?
that they were wrong, but I did them anyway because I have a sinful nature. So do all human beings.
Well, last question is hold on. Last question. So do you think those people think it's wrong to do those ritual sacrifices, and do you think those people think that it's wrong to do what they do?
I think you can be very blinded by a culture to the point where you can't even see your own sin. But I think that deep down they would know, and I think that if they were brought out of that culture, they would very quickly realize. And I think that deep down, yes, they would know.
How do you know that?
I can't scientifically prove it, but I think from a biblical standpoint, I know it from there. And I think that you could very much test it if you've got different human beings. And if you actually ask a human being about their moral code across the world, you'll find them all to be very, very similar.
I disagree with that.
I completely disagree with
totally
that.
Disagree with
that. That is absolutely is not true at all.
You had your chance to ask your question.
Go ahead, Texan.
How you generalize Christianity. Not all who call on the name of the Lord will make it into the kingdom of heaven, and so you gotta be more specific when addressing to Christianity, because you just say Christians like we're all the same people. No, we're not the same people. We're not perfect either. I believe all humans were born with sin, and so there's always going to be the temptation of, like Christian said, morality conflicting with the internal intentions of man, whether that be good or sinful. And so, in response to the example that you took with the, I believe it was the
uncontacted tribes.
Yes, the uncontacted tribes. These are people who never knew the gospel, and I believe there's a verse where God said that He's going to ensure that the gospel gets spread out to all four corners of the earth. God doesn't specify in the word what He's going to do of these people who didn't know Him, but He does make it clear that before Christ returns, it will be spread out to all four corners of the earth. And I'm also going to make a side note, and this is probably something I'm going to come to later. For those who don't believe in the Word of God at all, just look at the prophecies and predictions that were made by the people in that document, which is written over 2,000 years ago, and you will see that many of these things have actually come true in this generation that we live in.
For example?
Natural disasters, nations going to wars. Remember World War I?
That is
it has happened to the extent we live in right now. Remember World War I? World War I was called the war to end all wars. But what happened 20 years later?
World War. Yeah, I understand. But what happened since World War II? We haven't had. I mean, since maybe Vietnam, we haven't had any large scale wars in the world since then, and it's been like
right. That's true. God didn't say it's going to happen in 2 days. It can happen in 100 years. It can happen in 1,000 years. You also have the example of all the nations, and this is mentioned in the Bible. All the nations that are going to want to unite and defy God, and there's an organization that's trying to do that right now, the World Economic Forum, that's trying to initiate the new one world order, and they want to gather all the nations of the earth and make it into one singular government. That was predicted in the Bible, and it's happening at a very fast pace that we can't even realize right now. It's actually very scary when you think about it. So you can't say,
so
I mean, it's stuff that was in 2,000 years ago. You can't say it's not true.
Question. Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, go ahead then.
Okay. You say natural disasters, but natural disasters have been happening forever. We have proof of this in the Earth's crust.
It has.
We have proof.
It has.
Yes, we have had natural disasters all over the planet.
It's only getting worse.
Actually, that's not true.
Worse?
It is getting worse. It is getting worse. You can't deny
How
that.
is it getting worse?
How is it getting worse?
There's increased earthquakes compared to the previous years. There's more hurricanes, I believe, tropical storms.
When did we start actually like recording all the earthquakes?
Till recently. Now you can look at it from a biblical perspective. Like I said, I believe it was written over 2,000 years ago. That's what most historians agree with. However, I sincerely believe that natural disasters have significantly increased. At least since the past 10 years, they have definitely increased in intensity.
What places are you giving that? Oh no, like intensity was
I can give you direct places. I can prepare a chart for you later if you want me to, but I'm speaking.
We might be getting a little off.
But anyways, it doesn't matter whether or not there is more earthquakes or not more earthquakes. Let's say 2,000 years ago, I make a prediction that there's going to be a gigantic war between in the world, and then there's going to be a large amounts of deaths. All right. and that happens. Does that automatically mean that
the predictions?
Hold on.
predictions
Yeah,
of the
does
Bible
that
are
automatically
precise.
mean does that automatically mean that my prediction came from a divine source? How do you verify that my prediction from 2,000 years ago came from a divine source?
It's your point is inaccurate because you just gave a random statement. The points in the Bible were rather precise. God was very precise about it. He was like, these things have to take place, and it also gives a timeline, and this timeline is actually happening. These things have to take place in order for Christ to come. If these things don't happen, then people think that we're not getting to World War III anytime soon. Mark my words, World War III is coming faster than you think, and it's going to be twice as worse. It's going to be twice as.
Texan, I don't. I think for this moral argument, we don't need to really bring dispensationalism into the debate at the moment because it's not really. It's kind of a completely different topic, really.
I'm just
but that doesn't really answer my question. I guess my question is like, how do you verify that a person, about 2,000 years ago,
it's faith
came? Yeah, their prediction came.
How do I know that the Bible that I'm reading?
So you don't know. You just believe it. You just want to believe it.
How do I know that the Bible I'm reading wasn't probably modified? I do my research.
Yeah, how
I
do you know?
I choose to believe by faith. Like I said, faith is a belief in things you can't see.
Well,
so you're admitting that
the first and second counts in Isaiah. We know it was modified.
So you're admitting that there is no evidence for. You don't believe that there's evidence for God.
I don't need evidence as long as I see the positive impacts that it brought to my life, which it has. Then I choose to believe that it's actually beneficial and that it's actually true. And I have reaped a lot benefit positively from following the word of God, and so I choose to believe that it's true. Now, if you haven't had the right experience, maybe it's not your time. Maybe it's going to happen at a later date when you're going to have that realization. But that's what faith is. God doesn't want you to have evidence. God never said you need to have evidence in order to believe. He said no.
Well, God would say that, wouldn't he?
He wouldn't. He didn't make any mention of that.
That's exactly what I would expect God to say, right?
Let me actually take this example. Each time when the disciples reasoned with Christ always said, "Where's your faith?" That's actually something they got reproached for so many times. Like they were like, "God, are you sure this is true? Are you sure this is going to happen?"
Yeah. So
faith.
The problem with that,
I'm not really on the same page with Texan on this. I'm not on the same page here.
Yeah, no, I got you. So, the problem with that is like, if we don't believe in things based off of faith because there are
you don't.
Yeah, I know. That's what I just said.
Yeah.
That's what I just said.
You said wait.
So yeah, that's me and Party Pigeon. So we don't believe in faith, and the reason why that is because we only believe things based off of evidence. And let's say I were to believe in your God or your Christian religion based off of faith. There's tons and tons and tons of other religions that I'm basically excluding myself out of. That let's say if I am incorrect, I could go to like a hell based on their religion and this religion or that religion. So for me, it's better off for me to just be hold on. But it's just better for me to be.
You just got off track. I must mention this. It's not about Christianity. Christianity is just an example. I chose.
Allow me to finish, man. Allow me to finish. All right.
Okay, sure.
So the problem is is that if all of these religions have a different description of God, what he believes, who he is, what you need to do to go into heaven, any one of my choices could damn me to all hell and all eternity. So what I would rather do is to be honest with myself and be honest with the world and be like, hey, I have no idea whether or not there is a God because there is no evidence.
Argument wasn't Christianity, and that's why I said that you earnestly
my argument isn't against Christianity. My argument that I'm making against you is about faith. I understand.
No, it's about religion. My argument is that people who submit themselves to a divine creator are better off than those who don't. And my thesis was that there is no such thing as atheism. I mean, I know you guys keep on mentioning it over and over, and you probably will for the rest of this debate, but I must make it clear to you guys, I do not believe for one single bit in atheism.
Why?
I believe that if you do not believe in a divine creator, you're worshiping yourself because you decide what is right. You decide what is right, you decide what is wrong.
So worshiping myself means that atheism doesn't exist? What does that doesn't correlate?
No, because atheism is you don't worship any god, right? You don't worship any divine creator.
No.
That's what atheism is.
Yes.
However, when you're making your own decisions, when you're deciding what is right and what
atheism is just not believing in God.
Theism. Okay, let's just take an example.
Or religion.
Theism, right? We believe in a God. And that God dictates our life. He tells us what is wrong and what is right. He tells us what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Atheism, however, there's no God telling you what is right and what is wrong. You're deciding that. And so I personally believe that you think that you're superior to a God, or to God in general. You think you're superior. You think you know what is right, what is wrong. You hold
Hold
the key
on.
to all knowledge.
Hold on. If I don't know if God exists, how do I think that I'm better than him?
How do you think you're better than him?
Yeah.
Because you believe that what you think, again, opinion, right? In Christianity, for example, opinions don't matter. The only thing that matters is the word of God. However, your opinion matters. And so, like I said, you're dictating your life. You're in charge. If you're in charge of your own life, aren't you essentially a god? Like, arguably, aren't you essentially a god?
What is
No,
God?
we're not a god. I'm a human.
Like,
No, I'm a
No,
human
if
that is controlling my own life. That doesn't make me a god.
No, you worship yourself, essentially. Worship.
What do you
isn't
mean by
necessary-
worship? I mean,
I don't worship
I don't
anything.
worship anything.
You do. There's many ways you worship.
What do you mean?
yourself,
What does
right?
worship
Believe
mean?
it or not.
What do you mean by
Believe it or
worship?
not. Worship is rendering reverence to a higher being because you acknowledge that that person is more powerful than you. They have more knowledge.
Yeah, but that's
than
not
you,
what
and
atheists
whatever.
believe. Atheists don't believe in a higher being.
You don't exactly. You're the higher being in this case.
Yeah, but we don't believe we're a higher being. We just believe we're
Well,
humans.
do you believe in yourself?
Well, I'm a human being.
You
I don't
believe
think I'm better than you.
Christianity
Or anyone else.
Christianity is believing in Jesus Christ.
Yes.
That's Christianity.
Yes.
So if you believe in yourself, and so if we no, let me actually.
I believe
track
I'm a
back.
human.
No. Let me track back. If I believe in Christ, I worship. That means I worship Him. I'm Christian, right? And so,
Okay.
if you believe in yourself, what does that mean?
I believe that
We
I'm.
believe
What do
in
you mean? I
ourselves.
believe I'm a human. Yeah, I believe that I'm real.
doesn't mean we worship
That doesn't-
ourselves.
yeah.
I don't feel like I don't worship anything. Like that's the difference. I don't think I'm a god. I don't
Mm-mm.
like. I'm not Kanye West. Man.
I'm a human just like everyone else. Did he leave?
Okay,
Basically,
well,
All right, redeemed.
I think. Okay, so Texan, I don't really follow a lot of what he was trying to say there, but I think that I guess we could track back to the whole moral standpoint. What I'd say, I would actually disagree with what he said about there being a God specifically that makes people moral. It's there being the Christian God is the true morality. I think that with atheism, because it's all
the example I
opinionated, the problem with Sisyphus' idea about morality just being whatever the country decides it is, so that can lead to very evil and corrupt countries.
I didn't
And,
say. Wait.
I don't mean to interrupt you guys, but no, you guys just like put words in my mouth. The argument's not Christianity. Remember, it's religion as a whole. Christianity is just an example I happen to choose for this specific situation, but it's not my argument. Is not Christianity here.
All right, we get it. That added absolutely zero to the conversation. Thank you. So, what were you going to ask me, Redeemed?
It did because you're
Redeemed,
focusing on this.
Texan, Redeemed. Go ahead. You had a question
so I
for
was
us?
So I was basically trying to ask Sisyphus about. He was sort of saying that the majority rules in terms of each country decides what is moral and what is not. Is that can lead to extremely immoral countries. I think if we look at societies as a whole, societies are best when they are Christian societies. Let's look at Europe. Europe was the most powerful continent. Europe ruled the entire world. Europe was the most successful. What was Europe? Europe was a Christian continent. All of the other continents were pagan. We had pagan Africa. We had a lot of paganism in Asia, in the Americas, all pagan. And they were all the weakest nations. I mean, we did have a bit of Islam as well, Middle East, but again, Islam made them slightly better, but not really at all. They were still mostly weak once the Europeans started inventing things. So I think we look at Christianity makes society the best. And now the West is starting to collapse. I think we can all agree the West is getting progressively worse and worse. And why is the West getting worse? Because atheism is becoming more prevalent in the West.
Yeah,
Notice
but
how
we.
every single nation. Notice how every single nation that turned away from theism actually fell. That's a very good point that you brought.
But that is absolutely is not the case at all. The Western country. Hold on, I allowed you guys to speak. So, Western countries are the most prosperous countries. We have the best militaries. We have the smartest, highest IQ people. We have to build the most inventions. We create the most patents. We have the highest amounts of technology. We have the highest standard of living than most other countries that have more religious people than us. Like, I don't see how you could make this point that the West is failing because people are less Christian, but we're less Christian now, and we're better than we were 200 years ago.
Schools.
No. Well, that's we took because what you're doing is 1 second, Texan. 1 second.
Okay.
Real quick. No, because what Sifis is saying is that because we're more atheists now, we're better off. But no, this is not the case. What has happened is for the last 2,000 years, the West, where it was Europe, and then it became the West with America and everything, was built on Christianity. And so we've gotten better and better and better. But now that because we've gotten so good, we're slowly descending into atheism. And now, because we were so good for so long and technology is improving, we've hit our height. But I think that we are slowly now going down with that height. America is, and the UK, all these European countries are starting to become weaker, and other nations are starting to become more powerful. And the West is slowly starting to lose all of its morality. We can look in the governments; all the morality is disappearing. Degeneracy is spreading everywhere. And the countries are slowly becoming weaker now. And I think you can't say that these countries are powerful because of atheism.
I never said that.
They became powerful because of Christianity.
No, I never said that the country is stronger because of atheism. All I'm saying is that the country is more atheist now than it was before. I'm not saying that atheism is a reason. What I'm saying is that we are way better now. We are much more successful. We have a larger military than every other single country in the world.
Military. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Okay, man. We have So the thing is, we have a stronger military than we've ever had. We have a higher standard of living than we've ever had. We have more people than we've ever had. Like by every metric, we are better now, and we have more atheists and less Christians.
Yeah, I would argue that correlates.
Dean, can I actually give?
Have you ever heard the saying that easy times?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is Christianity leaving hasn't made a negative Christianity, like, not dissolving from the United States or the West or whatever, hasn't made us worse off. We're better off over these years.
I want to say something to.
I'd say morally we're not. In terms of how successful we are, we slowly are becoming worse. But we've only been majority atheists for a very short amount of time.
The past 2,000 years, religious wars have been waged. Were those moral wars?
Men will find saying that it's because of religion is ridiculous. Men will find a reason to fight over anything. Go to a football match. Men will fight over who their favorite team is winning or not. Men will fight over anything.
The religious including religion. Were they moral? Yes or no?
Religious wars. It would depend on the specific war.
The Crusades.
Some of the Crusades I say were justified because Islam was trying to invade Europe and the Europeans pushed them back.
One at a time, man. Go ahead.
So yeah, I would say that I would say that not the fourth crusade, but I say the first few crusades were moral because Islam was slowly invading Europe through Iberia, the Iberian Peninsula, and so the Europeans tried to push them back through the crusades. So I'd say they were justified in doing that.
So let me ask you another question.
Can I finally say this?
No. Okay, go ahead, Texan.
I had to respond to King about what he said about our nation because the Western world is not rising. It's actually failing. It's failing miserably.
How?
Just let me finish. Finish. I give you time. And so look at the education system. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of our nation, we implemented the Bible as a standard in all of our schools. Now today, we took out the Bible. We replaced it with drag queens. Never should have been added. No, I didn't finish.
Hold on. Let him finish.
We took out the Bible, replaced it with drag queens, we replaced it with all of this pathetic BS, and now we are the lowest in terms of academic. We don't lead the world academically anymore. We are now replaced by third world countries. Our military has failed. We don't focus on manliness anymore. We focus on what bathrooms our soldiers should use. And they actually give it a story about Harvard, the most famous university we have in this nation. Harvard was a university founded by a few men, and the reason why it was founded 1800s, probably late 1700s or early 1800s. The reason why these men founded Harvard, which is a university, they founded it because they were worried that America was turning away from God and we were turning away from morality. And so we said, this is dangerous for our future, and we need to establish an institution that's going to guarantee that we don't take that path. And so they established Harvard, and it turned out to be a great success. The main document every single student studying was the Bible. And this, I'm talking about students from all different backgrounds. Even if you weren't Christian, you just studied the Bible for your academics, and it turned out to be a huge success. Today, Harvard has turned away from the Bible, and it is now the most disastrous university in the United States today. Like,
Oh,
Are
I'd
you
say that would be
sure?
Berkeley.
That is
I would
such.
say
I
that Berkeley.
completely
It is not
disagree,
even
bro.
respect. Harvard
I
has
completely.
lost.
Hold on.
Harvard. No, I didn't finish. I
All
didn't
right,
finish.
go ahead.
Harvard has lost its respect on the global stage. It is no longer a respectable university because of the woke nonsense and the agenda that they're implementing on their students, and they remove the Bible from all of their courses. It doesn't even matter if it's Christianity or not. When you remove theism from a school, there is no morality because students have the freedom to explore whatever they want, and even if it's wrong, nobody's gonna confront them for it because I'm free. I don't submit myself to a creator. But
right.
when you have a document like the Bible in place, even though we're not forcing you to submit your entire life to that document, at least you have some moral foundation.
All right. Can we keep these like answers like try to keep them like short and on like 2 minutes?
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? So because you mentioned like
Wish I could do the
20
same.
different points, and so the first thing.
As a matter of fact,
hold
I
on.
mentioned 2
Texan.
points. I mentioned 2 points.
Texan.
Correct myself. Don't put words in my mouth.
All right, Texan. So you
I
said
just
that
want to say something, Tessus, about what he said about Harvard. I strongly disagree with that. Harvard is probably still one of the best schools on the planet.
Absolutely,
It's the
yeah,
worst.
that's
The
completely
worst.
bogus. That is literally one of the
It
best
is
schools
the
in the
worst.
planet. People spend top dollar and fucking people will kill.
Right.
People would kill to fucking
If
send their
Harvard-
children
Yes.
there.
If
Bro,
Harvard-
literally,
if
people have
Harvard-
murdered people to go to fucking Harvard. I don't know what the hell you're talking
Harvard-
about.
if
Anyways,
Harvard
but
was the
hold on,
best university-
Texan. We allowed you to ramble, bro, but you gotta allow us to
No,
respond, bro.
I'm
Texan,
I'm actually
Texan.
gonna say this.
Yo, Cephas,
If Harvard-
Cephas.
What's up?
If Harvard was the
He
best
went
university,
on for like 3 minutes, and he's not allowing us to respond.
I should have an opportunity to make a rebuttal.
But you already made a rebuttal, and now we have to respond to what you just said. You went on for like 3 minutes.
1 minute to be precise.
Okay, listen, you have to allow us to rebuttal.
Right. Quickly though.
Okay, so the problem is, right? What you said is simply taking away Bibles from school isn't the reason why a lot of these public schools are the way that they are. I would say it's a whole host of issues that are completely outside of whether or not there's a Bible or Christianity within the school. It's because we don't have school choice in a lot of these cities. It's because we don't allow for charter schools. It's a whole host of other reasons that are completely separate from whether or not the Bible is on any of these public schools or not. And also what you said about Harvard is completely BS because people spend top dollar in order to send their children there. They don't spend top dollar in order to send their children there for no reason. They do it because that Harvard is one of the best schools like in the world and within the United States. So are these people just stupid and are just wasting their money so they can send their child somewhere else? Having a Harvard degree is one of the most prestigious things that you could have, and to say simply because they went away from religion and now the school went to shit, isn't true by any metric. Like by what metric do you believe that Harvard is worse off now than it was say when it was first started?
Harvard.
Wait, hold on, Texan. Give me just 1 second. So we're gonna have one last point from each side, and then we're just gonna bring a new batch of people up. Is that okay to just?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Texas, you respond, and Sifis responds last, and that's it.
I was gonna say, Harvard is not a successful university. I don't care if you're paying $2 million a year to be admitted to the most top university. If Harvard was a successful university, our leaders were going to actually do a good job. This nation wasn't going to be in the position that it is, and pretty much the rest of the world. You can't tell me. Like I said, a college degree doesn't determine how you are as a person. You can have all the degrees of the world. Degree in philosophy, degree in psychology, I don't care. If you don't have common sense, you don't have basic morals, then you are pretty much a stupid person to me. I don't care what college you went to. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't kill to come to Harvard. I've actually interviewed people from third world countries, and I asked them, like, if you had the opportunity to come to America and attend these universities, would you come? Some said yes, some actually admitted that they would kill, but the majority said they wouldn't. They would actually prefer to remain there because The failures, we are an embarrassment to the world stage, and our failures are so out there. Everybody sees what's happening, and Harvard is not a good university anymore. It has failed miserably. Every single institution or nation that has turned away from theism has always failed, and you cannot prove me wrong. Starting with the Egyptian Empire, the Roman Empire, the English Empire, and now the current empire we live in right now, the American Empire, is now failing because we turned away from common sense. When you take God out of these institutions and you replace it with BS like we see right now, and I don't even have to list them off because if you guys are on the news, you know what I'm talking about, obviously. That's what happens. It's really what happens.
So first off, the whole idea I asked you the question that I asked you was by what metric do you believe that Harvard is doing worse than it was? Hold on.
Okay, I'm not gonna answer your question.
No. You didn't. I asked you already, and you didn't want to answer. And then the answer that you gave is, you asked a bunch of foreigners would they go to Harvard, and most of them said no. That's ridiculous. Hold on. Do you really believe that foreigners, if given the opportunity,
yeah, you're probably the type of person that considers foreigners as unsmart people.
Allow me to finish. I never said that. All I'm saying is, if you think that if given the opportunity if you gave the opportunity to a foreigner or anybody in another country to go to Harvard, that they would say no, because America is a failing state, I think you're completely out of your mind.
No, that could be out of my mind. When a Harvard professor can't even tell you what a woman is, you really expect me to go send my child to that university?
That's one person.
That's one person.
That person. Do you know how hard it is to become a professor in Harvard? Have you seen the process? Exactly. So if that one,
because it's a prestigious school.
I don't care. If that one person can't tell me what a woman is, I am not sending my child to that university. That just shows a precedent. If you can't tell me, if a professor can't tell me what a freaking woman is, they should fire her. They should actually fire her. The fact that she's still in that university shows that university is already failing. And it's not one professor. It's multiple. That's a narrative. They silence students.
I'm just going to say this. Harvard has free courses online. You can take.
All right.
So you don't need
students need to gather in person, not online.
Yeah,
that's why we're failing.
I think.
Okay, so I think that's it for this round.
I never get to say what I wanted to say at the end. I just didn't say this. It's going to be short.
Okay.
Back to what we said at the beginning. You don't need a religion morals. You basically need to know what you don't want to happen to you. You don't need a book to tell you don't stab somebody for their money. Because the repercussions could be like you dying in the process. You don't need a religion. I'm done.
Okay. Any final comments?
I wish I had more time to talk to Redeem, but I feel like every time I was talking to Redeem, Texan would come in and kind of hijack what we were talking about. But it's whatever.
Okay, Redeem, Texan, any more last words?
I think the topic has changed so much at this point. I don't really have much to say, I don't think.
All right, I was going to say...
Okay, sorry, Texan, go for it.
The entire world is failing because they are turning away from morality, they are turning away from God, and it's only going to get worse. And you're going to remember what I'm saying in 10, 20, 50 years from now.
The word is actually telling people the truth, and like the aliens.
Right.
Guys,
we're done. I'm gonna drag you guys down, and then anybody who wants to come up, you can come up. What is it? Hey guys, what is it? Redeem, Sifis, Texan, Prophet. Thank you for coming up for this round. All right. So next question is proof of God. So I'm going to bring Mace since he's been waiting patiently forever. I'm sorry, Mace, for keeping you up. What is it? RW has also been waiting forever. I'm not sure if they're still here.
Sorry, what was the question again? I didn't catch
that. Do you guys believe there is proof of God? If anything, wait, and then I'm going to bring Void Demon and I'm going to bring Marcellus up because I might as well get like different perspectives of different religions as well. So wait. Actually, let me see. Root Coach wants to come up. So And Boy Demon, come up here, brother. All right. Boy Demon, I sent you an invite. So let me
click the speak on stage. He's gonna click that.
Can I ask for
accept it? Oh,
Can I ask for a bit of a clarification on the question? Is this personal proof for ourselves or proof to try and give to others?
so hold up. Let me re-invite Boy Demon since he says he's having some difficulties. Let me try. Boy Demon, can you get up? So like for me, since this is an atheist versus theist debate, do you believe there since I'm assuming you're a theist, RW?
I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I believe in Christ, so I'm on Christ's side for this debate.
Got you. So I would say, do you have any proof of, let's say, Christ or God or Yahweh as the existence of like the creator in this context? Like, do you have like physical, like not necessarily physical or any sort of proof? It could apply to anything.
So, for me to answer first.
Hold up. I'm waiting for Boy Demon. He says he's having troubles. What is it?
Okay.
Give me a second. Could you, is it possible you can drag somebody up here? Let me see. I'm gonna give him the staff role actually, temporarily. So
for some reason, I don't know.
Here you go, brother. You know, like, Boy Demon, press the. There we go. There you go, buddy. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Of course. So we're going to start off with the question, is there existence for God, essentially? And then we can start off with RW. Who are you? What is your where are you from? What's already represent? And then as well, what's your belief on the stance? And then we go to Root Cuts, and then we go to Mason, and then we go to Boy Demon.
What was the third point? Sorry, where I'm from after that?
So the third point is, what is it? What server are you from? If you are from any server that you represent,
Okay.
and then as well, yeah.
So my name's Rod. I'm from North Carolina. I'm homesteading here after a life of biotechnology in the rat race. My server that my crew of boys that I hang out with there is Drone Tech or the International Pub, which is an old Live Elite group. But for my stance on it, if I've answered the other questions enough, my stance, proof for others, I would say creation. That's a very complex conversation that can go on for a long period of time, but that the word in itself, creation, I think that is physical proof. And when it comes to more personal proof, if anyone's been on a mission field and seen what the people are like that have dived fully into a belief system, prayer in real time and stuff that happens there is very different than living in the world, a little bit different. And, you can't use this as proof exactly, but our own personal testimonies, things that we've experienced and how it works with prayer and answer to prayer and people that are part of the church and spending time with them and stuff like that. The things that happen in that experience, I would consider proof for myself, but there's no way that I could push that onto someone else and say, this is proof, so you must believe. And I think that's all I really have to say. Curious to hear what you guys have to say.
Okay, Root Coach. So who are you? Where are you from? What server do you represent? And what is your stance on this?
Okay, my name is Rukoch. I am from this server, the Nexus server, and my stance on this, on the existence of God. Well, I don't believe that God is like as a personality. I don't believe he has his own individual identity. I think God is the bottom layer of our reality, where there has to be something that existed before the universe existed, right? and that thing has to always be here. It has to be never created. It has to be eternal, and it has to be the source from which everything else stems from. And I believe that is God, but I don't believe it is a person. And yeah.
Like a deist belief, I see, like something that set up the foundation for all the universe, but kind of left it in motion. You know, kind of like, maybe I'm completely butchering that. I just seem to want to understand.
Yeah. I would think of it as like a force, right? Just like
Okay.
all the other forces in the universe, but it's the force that isn't just confined to one aspect. It's not just like gravity, or gravity's not really a force. It's not just like magnetism. It's a force that connects everything, including consciousness. Yeah, so that's what I believe.
Oh, what's up, man? People would say the
Gotcha.
same thing about manifestation or positive thinking, introducing reality. Yeah, I guess so.
Hello, I'm May Starwalk. I'm from the Pangburn server.
Welcome.
I
This is
don't
the
really
worst
have
debate
anything
I've
to
ever been
contribute
in.
here, I'm afraid. I'm an atheist. I'd be absolutely mental to be an atheist and claim that I had proof of God. So you can, yeah, I don't have proof, sorry.
What about going to the other side?
Sorry.
The proof of not God, I guess, would be still valid.
Yeah, that was what I was asking. Do you have proof of God, or do you have proof that disproves God? Is maybe like some things we can probably point out, because usually when I think of like either agnostic or atheist, you know, people who are atheists tend to believe that there isn't a God. They're more likely than not there's because there is no proof of something. There's kind of like a disbelief. So sometimes there's some people, maybe in the minority, that said it could probably disprove the existence of God for X, Y, and Z reason. So I'm wondering, are you one of those people, or?
Depends which God you're talking about. Broadly, I'm an agnostic atheist, but there are some specific gods that I do actively disbelieve in.
Gotcha. So, boy, demon, what is it? Welcome.
Those full of people meeting God or representation of Him.
Our friend.
If true, why does He not make
as
Himself
well as
evident?
everybody here, thank you.
I don't know.
What is it?
Because that would just be that would ruin the fun, I guess.
Who are you? Where are you from? What server do you represent, and what is your stance on this?
Yeah, so I'm Boy's Demon, or Oh Boy. Either one doesn't particularly matter. I'm from the info-based server, and I'm an irreligious agnostic, so I don't hold a specific positive claim overall for or against the existence of God. But I think the fact that we even have to ask, is there a God, shows that there isn't clear enough evidence for one. I'll keep it relatively brief and keep it at that.
I'm sorry, real quick. What type of agnostic? I didn't understand the title.
Oh, essentially, it's someone who's either indifferent or against religion. My specific type is I'm against religious institution, personally.
Okay. Organized religion?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, if anybody, I think that's a pretty interesting question. I mean, we could, why are you like against like like religious institutions? So like, maybe we can start off there, and then we could probably work up to like where does God, like, where's this existence of God come from, or like it can be just it's very lackluster, or not be able to be proven.
Well, like, I guess I can start into just generally, for me, the fact, again, like I mentioned before, like the fact we even have to ask the question should be enough evidence to suggest that there's a problem there, right? And like Mace, I do also hold that specific gods more than likely don't exist, more so because they're not logical, rational, or empirical in nature. Generally, we talk about metaphysics when we talk about deities and gods and goddesses and any other form of being which is supposed to be outside of our reality. Like the Christian God falls into that category. Islamic one, Judaism, all the whole shebang. those have the biggest issues in terms of popularity, both because of all the different issues surrounding them. And even within those specific religions, there's lots of institutional problems we see in the current day. We have seen for many, many years with a lot of these, what goes on with all these institutions and these collected groups. And generally, the root cause of it is a religious type or cultish type of beliefs, which result in people having, like, almost never having a functioning brain when they're talking about things strictly from an emotional basis. And I think that's a big problem.
So, RW root cuts, you're able to respond if you want, or we could probably just go on to the question, like, let's say, for the existence of God.
Well, I do. I mean, Root, you can go first if you want, but I do have a question.
No, you can go first. You can go first.
So, in organized religion, I seem to see the trouble coming when man gets involved. So, we just say we take the 10 Commandments, I would think that most people here would be okay with someone else that believed in the 10 Commandments and followed those laws, because that person would never bother them or harm them. If anything, they would help them and be good to them. But when you get to where politics gets involved and man spreads more and more of their own beliefs and traditions into it, I usually only see issues there. So that's kind of my response to what I was thinking when you were talking, Boy.
I mean, man is the only people we really have to interact with when it comes to that type of stuff. Is the problem, right? Even within current day, there's lots of like you mentioned, like political related things which connect to the church, and even with investigations on lots of the corruption that goes on with it, there's still this handshake that a lot of these institutions do with each other to protect a lot of the predators and fraudsters and everyone else who does these bad things within these viewpoints or within these institutions. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I think the root problem of that is religion and cult-like thinking for multiple reasons. The fact that we have to appeal to something which isn't clear to us actually exists, and then we're supposed to follow certain ideas like the 10 Commandments, right? Which I don't think are 100%. At least 8 of them are 100% nonsensical. Fine, they make sense, right? But even within that, there's other ideas which come from such deities, which we're supposed to take and then follow without thinking or without much question, which also becomes a bigger problem in itself when those are then exploited for the bigger people.
I would argue that there's 2 camps on that. One camp that is a debate and conversation on any topic because it's all about seeking truth, and others where you're labeled a heretic for doing so.
I suppose so, sure.
So wait, Boy Demon, you're just against organized religion, right?
No, I'm not only against it. Like I've said like 3 times now. I think religion in itself is the root problem of a lot of issues in general, especially political and institutional.
Okay. So wait, what do you define as religion if you're not just talking about organized religion? So are you just against the people believing in God's existence?
I wouldn't say necessarily against it. Like, if you want to believe in a deity, fine, just don't bother me, or put it onto a society. Don't have it for a societal level, and nor don't use it to abuse people, right? But that's more of an individual thing. I have no problem with it from an individual perspective, but it's when it's put onto other people, and then it's spreads out to society, where other people are affected by such impact things which we don't have any concrete evidence for, is where it becomes an issue.
There would have to be the same argument for the Christian to say, don't push things upon me as well. I mean, let it be a fair front on both sides, correct?
Well, we have to explain what that is. Like, I don't think there's something on the material world which we're pushing on, like we're generally pushing on people which don't have no concrete evidence for.
I mean, we do push certain ideologies that don't have any real evidence, like transgenderism. That's for one. That's actually pushed towards the rest of society. That isn't based on any real solid evidence. And I'll actually disagree. If somebody has a religious experience, right, and they say that they connected to God, right, and they saw God with their own eyes, who are you to say that their experience isn't real? Who are you to say that their experience can't be used as evidence for whatever conclusion they came to because of the experience?
Can't you say the same thing about someone that claims they were abducted by aliens?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Well, if someone tells me they were abducted by aliens and probed and shit, I'm gonna call bullshit on that.
Yeah, but the difference is, are they telling that you must believe it, or are they saying, dude, I got probed?
Well, they're obviously trying to convince me, and I remain unconvinced.
Fair enough.
So you don't believe in anecdotal evidence then?
I can. It depends on the fundamentals of what's being claimed, though. It has to make sense. I can't just be like, that doesn't make any sense, but because you said it happened, I have to believe it.
I mean, you don't have to believe it. You just have to believe that they saw what they said they saw. You don't have to believe that it was real.
The things they claim they saw don't make any sense, though, so I can't believe it.
Okay, how could you say
organized
with
religion, but
certainty
Catholic
that what they said didn't make any sense?
A born hardline Christian group were all
To
harmful.
himself. It doesn't make sense. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
not religious, so
whenever I say anything,
I mean,
I'm not saying it with 100% certainty.
Me personally, I don't really fuck with it.
I never have 100% certainty.
Let me clarify. So I feel like you're singling out paranormal experiences, right? You're saying that if somebody sees an alien, you're not gonna believe them. But what if the same person said they saw a really rare type of rabbit or something that's
God, I want to jump up here and answer his question.
And everybody thought it was extinct.
That is much more believable than being beamed up and probed.
Thank you, for the man.
Put back in South America again.
I mean, why is that more believable than an alien abducting them? You haven't seen the phenomena that they're describing, right? You've just heard of it from other people. You have not seen it with your own eyes, but you're willing to believe them if they say they saw a certain type of rabbit.
God, I wish he lets me up there.
Nobody else has seen it for 1,000 years. But if they say they saw a alien being that abducted them and did all these things to them, right? Those are at the same criteria of belief.
No, I don't think so. It's more likely that someone has seen an endangered rabbit than they were abducted and probed by aliens.
I feel like we're off in the weeds here, guys.
Yeah.
So
I think we disagree there.
Yeah. I think maybe
really? You think an endangered rabbit
I just wish I could ask a
is as
question.
unlikely as alien probes? What are you talking about?
I mean, if a rabbit is not seen for 1,000 years, then yes.
But just to clarify, when we can talk about lots of the scientific, if you want to slap it on like that label, the scientific aspects of these certain things, right? Like there's certain things within history which have been described through both word and an oral tradition and teaching and through paintings and so on and so forth. But all of those things, there isn't necessarily evidence to suggest those things were true, right? Certain gods and deities weren't even described in ways we don't believe. We don't believe that they existed whatsoever. Yet within certain cultures that are long gone, we find semblances of symbols and ideas and teachings of those type of beings. So even from the perspective of us looking back at those people, I think we shouldn't just take what they're saying to be the case, right? Anecdotal evidence isn't necessarily irrelevant, but it shouldn't be the sole standard which you use for for proof of something being true.
Sure,
Well,
I
continue.
agree. I agree with that.
Perfect. I mean, great. So, which is why you ask, oh, so people, like, for example, my mother has had plenty of godlike experiences, right? If you know how Pentecostals are,
He
then you know
focused totally
how
on
that is, right? Like the
he
whole
has to believe
speaking in
in
tongues.
Jesus the
Hallelujah.
probe guy. Not that he should respect
Right,
what
so
he believes or happens
it's
to
not
him.
that I don't necessarily believe they're not going through something. In fact, evidence, like research on the specific thing, shows they're going through something, like psychologically. But the question isn't. The question shouldn't be, are they going through something? It's whether or not what they're saying is happening to them, like being touched by God or the Holy Spirit going to them or whatever, right? Is actually happening, which we don't have any evidence for. They're just saying that's the case just because, right?
I think we do have evidence. Again, this is why I asked Mace Starwalker whether or not he believes in anecdotal evidence.
I mean, there's also within the Christian church, there's also, so to talk to Boyd's point, in the charismatic movement churches, people are going through like a experience where they're feeling things and they're experiencing things, but other Christians are arguing that, you know, Jesus has nothing to do with that information. It's a false experience. So I don't know.
Sure.
Plus
I
you
mean,
too.
there's disagreements across different denominations within Christianity, right? Some people
Thank
look
you.
at speaking
Had
in
a big
tongues to be
sneeze.
nonsense. Other people hold it to be legitimate. But nevertheless, the point I was trying to address is the idea, right? Like anecdotal experience, someone might claim to be something's happening, but you can't. But you haven't really provided like a root. You haven't really provided any evidence to suggest these experiences are actually more than what they are.
Again, look, listen. We do not fully understand what consciousness is. We don't. It's true, right? And even in regards to scientific evidence is completely based on perception, the human perception and the instruments that we have.
Exactly.
If an individual has a paranormal experience, right, and they say they saw something, they perceived something happened to them. Who are you to gaslight them and say it never happened to them?
Well, in the concept where science can be biased, then you can say also that the Christian can see creation and use science and find proof of that through science, whereas the other theories would use the science, they'd use science to prove against it. So there is the aspect of biased science in those areas.
What's biased science?
So if someone wants to use science to prove that something is true instead of looks at the science and comes to a conclusion afterwards, they're using a bias to go into it to find that information and leans it in that direction.
Sure. I mean, there might be some out there like that. I would hope that's not the majority, all things considered. But generally, if you're going in, like, again, there's been plenty of studies on this stuff, in reference to the spiritual stuff and like what we might consider to be spiritual experiences. All of that is worth a good read for anyone curious about that, right? But it's not something which someone who like is going into it, an average scientist or someone generally who's curious about it, going in to find out whether that's true. My point really is, at the end of the day, it's really hard to actually prove that's anything more than what they're being told. That's all I'm saying. That's really all I'm saying. And to get evidence more than what they're telling us to be the case, you can't prove that. So it shouldn't be anything more than what they're telling you.
Exactly. I actually agree with you. You have to just believe what they say. If they say they saw something, we have to just believe that they said they saw that thing, right? But I disagree with you saying that just because you can't prove their claims, just because you can't prove the anecdotal evidence, you should just throw it out. It's worth nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
we send people to prison based on anecdotal evidence, right? Anecdotal evidence is used in courts. It is not something that you just throw away. It is actually valuable in terms of trying to find the truth.
I have a question for the group. If you were to ask personally, God, if you're real, give me proof, or not God, if you're real, give me proof. Like, if you were willing to make that own journey spiritually, however you'd label that, would you? And if something happened, would that be proof, or would that be coincidence, or what would that be? Have you asked that question personally? And what would I'm just whatever thoughts you have on that.
Can you restate the question? Or re-ask the question?
I guess I'll restate the question to: have you all individually asked for proof from a divine for personal experience, or have you not?
I have. Didn't get anything.
Okay.
I haven't, but also, like I said in the start of the conversation, I don't believe God is a person, so I don't believe that He would answer my prayers.
Okay. Do you not believe that based on personal experience, or you just haven't asked the question?
No, I have definitely asked the question.
Okay. Mac, do you have any thoughts on that or no? Sorry.
Do you mean Mace?
Sorry, I can't see your whole name on my screen.
Oh. Yes, I did used to loosely believe in Christian God, and I did pray to it, asking for it to, like, a sign that it's real, but obviously didn't guess anything because it's made up.
Interesting. So it's strange that I myself have experienced it multiple times. So, and I can't use that as proof to you. It means more to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's still valuable, right? We can't just say that. We can't just gaslight you and just say, well, just because I haven't had a religious experience, therefore your religious experience never happened.
No, but that's not what anyone's saying. And even with what I said, it's not that it didn't happen. It's just that it's not usually what people think it is, right? It's not.
No, I'm willing to say it didn't happen. I'll die on that hill.
Well, sure, right? But that's kind of a big claim overall to make.
I mean, that's fine. You have the right to say that. It's just.
I mean, wait, Mace, Skywalker. Let's say you watched the movie, right? And then I didn't watch that movie.
It's basically proven that
right?
people
And then I
interpret what
accused
happens
you
into what they're
of not
looking
watching
for.
the movie just because I haven't seen it myself. Would that make sense?
No, that doesn't make sense. But yeah, I don't think that's fully relevant to what I was saying.
That is literally what you're doing to RW when he says that he's seen or he's had a religious experience, right? Just because you haven't had a religious experience yourself, you can't just say he hasn't had one also.
To be what it is.
Okay, sorry, I was making assumptions about exactly what the experience was. I was assuming that Yahweh spoke to you. Is that a correct assumption? No. Okay, my bad.
I've only ever heard one word, and I can't even say that's what it was. Usually it's through coincidence or life experiences where something happens a certain way where it's almost miraculous for that to even be possible. Because it was in line with actual communication beforehand. It's just how it worked out. I wish it was a conversation because I would be having a different conversation now with other people.
Okay, so what exactly was the experience if it wasn't a conversation?
So the last one that I can remember is moving back from Australia to America and everything coming down to the wire and falling apart. And, you're getting to the point where you're like, oh, what am I going to do? Please help me. For example, the company that I chose to ship my box to this country was extremely overpriced, but I was going to do it. So I paid for it and I said, come get it. And that didn't work out. They didn't show up. So I thought I was being screwed over. So something else fell in its place where FedEx actually came to that country and grabbed it and for a cheap price shipped it back to America and everything got here. And then later I found out that if my stuff had actually gone to that first company, that it would have been locked up and it was a whole scheme, and I would have lost my stuff if I even got it back in the first place. So that is the last one I can relate to, something that I asked for help outside of my hands, and there was more to the story afterwards, and that meant something to me.
Where does the religious experience come in?
Literally begging God for help, or Yahweh, you know.
Well,
Literally,
I mean, sure, I totally believe those events happened, but there's nothing religious about them.
The religious part is the prayer in conversation with a specific entity for help. That's how it relates. That's why I'm saying it. But like I'm saying, that's my experience, and it doesn't.
What you just said there was, but the experience you're reporting on there is a normal experience that many people have been through. You don't need a supernatural explanation for it.
It's something. It's like I mean, I can go through many things if I sat down and thought about them and tried to bring them back to recollection. But you're right. It's an experience that many people have, and that experience had more meaning to me based on a prayerful experience. So it's just more. It's for me. If you had that experience, and if you had an experience where you couldn't explain how it happened outside of a miracle, that would be an experience for you that would mean something to you.
I mean, even within that, I think the problem with how a lot of religious people think, especially those who are prone to confirmation bias, right, is, and I see this a lot growing up around me and within my specific viewpoint. So, and this is just generally how religious people are when it comes to a lot of different things, because they'll have an experience which may be positive, it may be negative, but some may even go to the extent to say that, if God wanted that whatever thing to happen, it would have happened. Or within your specific situation, RW, things just fall into a specific place in your benefit, and you may feel as though that's a religious experience. And if you can't explain it in any other way, that's just how you're going to categorize it. And I think that's the mistake a lot of religious people do. You shouldn't assume that your specific viewpoint is the reason why whatever events happened. Like whatever events that happened, that's the reason as why.
Boys demon. I feel like you're criticizing religious people for. Okay, let's word this properly. You're doing the same thing as them, because you believe everything that happens in the universe has an explanation. Why do you believe that?
When did I say that?
You criticize religious people for viewing their experience, right, as coming from God and not viewing it as coming from somewhere else, therefore meaning that it had an actual explanation to it.
Sure. I mean, look, all right, fine. I will say everything has an explanation, just to get that out of the way.
Okay, why do you believe that?
Everything has an explanation, but I don't think, like, because if something happened, there's a reason why it happened. The reason may not be divine. It generally isn't with a lot of things, right?
What do you do? What do you define as divine?
I'll use RW's example if I understood it right. Like as an example, what I'm saying, right? You use a specific company. The company turned out to be a scam company, and if it wasn't intervened in some way, then all the items used for traveling to one country to another would have been lost, right? Summary of whatever he was saying, from what I understood.
Paraphrase good enough.
All right, yeah. So I just described what that was. I said something happened. There's an explanation as why it happened, right? And that's it. Now, what RW and a lot of religious people do in general is they inject a God into that equation, which I don't have to. I just explained whatever happened, the reason why it happened, and it happened. Like, those things just happened within a sequence of events. But when you add the extra step, becomes the problem.
May I just say that the Christian in that what you're just saying, you explained how it happened, and that's it. But for the other person, they believe that someone was actually looking out for them, and that was a part of it. It's just a piece of the whole puzzle of life. And that's not for me to say they're right or wrong, but I have no judgment against that person for thinking that way. It doesn't harm anyone. It's not in that. I mean, what is the harm in that? You can't prove that they're wrong. You just don't agree with them.
I mean, it's a big. I mean, for me, I'm not arguing from a point that it's necessarily harmful to hold that viewpoint. All I'm saying is that the viewpoint comes with a few assumptions, and making those assumptions within of events, right? And I don't think that's the most productive viewpoint to hold in the grand scheme of things. It may not be within every single circumstance, sure, and don't get me wrong, but it is something which can then lead to a bigger problem, which I was talking about earlier as far as institutions being brought up around these viewpoints.
Let's just pray about everything because something
I think there's
goes their way.
When a group of people or a person starts to negatively impact other people, that's where the problem begins.
Based.
So if you have someone that believes in something, there's nothing wrong with that. And if there's a whole school of those people that are studying that and, that's their understanding of life, and then they go out in the world and do their thing. If those people are good people and not negatively affecting anybody, sweet. If it's not the case and there's problems involved and negativity, then that's a different conversation for sure.
Sure, I don't disagree. But, I don't, just to kind of address what Root was saying, right? So I don't think it's unfair for me to do what I did in reference to that, right? I think everything has explanation. Do I think we deserve to know the reasoning, the explanation itself as why certain things happen? No, I don't think we do. And I also don't think we should assume that whatever thing happened, the reason something happened, right? For example, the intervention of a specific situation must be God or something divine or religious.
Right. I'm not going to chalk something up as it was God and then stop thinking about it. Trust me. I hope that everybody would look into the truth of everything as much as they can for as important as that thing is. If you're going to only get so far and be like, oh, God did it, and then I think you're going to be lacking understanding.
True, I actually agree with that.
All right, beautiful.
Wait, Boys Demon, and Mace Starwalker, I've got some questions for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had to go do something before, but
Isn't
did you answer?
the temperate supposed to be the one with the questions?
I mean, she can ask. For me, this is like a back and forth. It's kind of like a dog. I don't mind if you go back and forth. But I gotta say, guys, what is it? RW, Rucoach, Mace, Wardian, thank you so much for making this probably the most calmest conversation we probably have ever had on the server. Probably the most respectful one, I would say. I'm very for me, you guys are a paradigm what I want kind of for the interactions and everything. So I'm very thankful that you guys came up here, talked, everything else, everything was very respectful. Everybody let everybody else talk. So I'm very grateful to all of you for kind of setting a model for,
good job,
setting a model for everything. Yeah. Thank you guys. Good job for, keeping it respectful.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Thanks. But hey, good job for setting up this debate.
No. It's thanks to you guys that it happened. Everything else is just for the community and everything else. That's all it is. I want to do the best I can so I can support you guys in the community. And, have more discussions like this in whatever time. So thank you guys for coming out.
It's been good. I have to bow out myself because I have responsibilities to get to, but I appreciate the good conversation, and I hope you gentlemen all have a good night.
Yep. See you, bro.
Yeah, thanks, RW.
No problem. I actually don't know how to leave the stage. Do I push the red button? I feel old.
Yeah, the red. Yeah.
No, the green one.
He's a good guy.
Oh, okay.
He's an alright guy.
Mace and Boys Demon. Wait, I don't want to strawman your position again. So, do you guys believe in God's existence, or you don't believe in God's existence?
I don't.
I would say I don't. I would say like I don't believe in certain gods, but the overall concept, I can't really make a claim on it because I don't know.
Okay. So, what is God? God is, according to the Abrahamic faiths, is something that is all powerful, something that is all present, and something that is all knowledgeable. Meaning that it has experienced all things that has ever happened or ever will happen, so it knows everything. It is the source from which all things happen, so it is all powerful, and it is all present, meaning that it is part of the universe, part of our very existence. So
you also forgot omnibenevolence.
Sure, omnibenevolent. All right. So I want to ask you guys this question: what is your explanation for why reality exists, and why can we perceive reality through consciousness, and what is consciousness?
Boy, do you want to go first? I'll take that as a no.
Sorry.
Oh no. Okay.
So you're asking what's consciousness and how reality started and all of
that? Yeah.
I mean, that's a really big question. I would say in itself, I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I don't know why reality is in the way that it is. I don't really have too much of an explanation. There's possibilities in terms of both philosophy and how our brains function in reference to like more consciousness wise, but I'm not gonna go further into it. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. So, Mace Starwalker, what's your explanation?
Yeah. Same answer. I don't know.
Okay, so you don't know. So, the existence of God for humans, or the existence of a creator, a force that which all other existences stem from, this is the status quo, right? If you look at things historically, every single culture that has existed around the world has always believed in a creator, in a source that which all things come from. So
no, I don't think that's true.
No, that is true. Name one culture.
I'm not sure how you could make that claim.
Yeah, I think I can. Name a single culture that didn't believe in a creator, or they don't have a creation story.
I don't really know that many cultures, but I find it begs a lot of disbelief for me to think that every human culture in history, which goes back tens of thousands of years, has all had a creationist story. I think that's a bit far-fetched.
So you believe it's far-fetched, but you don't know why it's far-fetched?
No, I can probably give a reason for why it's far-fetched.
Okay, so what's your reason?
It's far-fetched because I think it's a bit bold of a claim to make, given that we don't have records from most of human history. We only have decent records from 2,000 years ago, and even they are pretty sketchy. So going back 10,000 years is just... No, I wouldn't make any claims about civilizations having creation stories from 10,000 years ago. That's just... You can't possibly know that.
Because we don't have the physical evidence, right? According to you.
We might have evidence for some, but not all. Well, I wouldn't make a claim about all.
Okay. We have anthropological evidence. There is cultures from across the world, right? That have all been documented.
I said some. I said some,
please,
but you're saying
relax.
All
I'm saying all. Please relax, okay? in the 20th century and in the 19th century as well, anthropologists from Europe and the US, they've pretty much documented every single surviving culture that was around since then to now, right? And every single one had a creation story. I'm not saying all of them had a organized religion, because that is not that is a creation of civilization. It's not innate to the human experience, but something that connects all these different cultures is that they all have a creation story. They all believe that something came from God. They all believe that the universe came from God. All right.
Yeah.
Wait. Let me address what you said with the whole. Oh, there's no way for us to physically. We don't have any physical evidence, so therefore we can never know. Did all cultures and all groups of people have a language?
Depends how far back you're going.
Okay, all groups of modern humans, did they have a language?
I don't know. Okay, that's a really difficult question. Depends on how you're defining modern humans now.
Okay, all humans have a common ancestor that's existed in the Middle East probably around 70,000 years ago. All right.
It also would depend on what you mean by language, because like there's probably some ancient tribes that did not have what we would call a language today, but could still communicate.
That's crazy. Wait, why are you saying that they didn't have a language?
Because I don't think they'd probably just communicate with certain sounds, but they wouldn't have like a proper dictionary. They wouldn't have many words. It'd probably just be like very basic stuff like good or bad.
Okay. You do realize language was invented not that long ago, probably 4000 BC. Around then was when language was created. So before language was created, I mean written language, there was no dictionaries.
Well, I would like say we're going a little bit like further down this rabbit hole. I don't agree with the premise that someone has studied every human culture that's ever existed. But
I never said that. I literally never said that.
That's what it sounded like you were saying.
No,
regardless,
you're not listening to what I'm saying.
Hold on, let me finish. Regardless of that, I'm willing to move past that for sake of argument to get to the point, because I do feel like this is going away from the God discussion. It's not really relevant anyway.
It actually is really relevant. And also, like I said, I didn't say that anthropologists have studied every single culture that's ever existed. There's been countless cultures that have come to exist and have died and have just disappeared, and nobody ever knew about them. But I did say from the look, stop, please. Let me clear things up, right? From the 19th
you don't know
century,
what I want clarity on yet.
I actually do. You want me to clarify whether or not every single culture has been studied or analyzed, right? And I said from the 19th to the 20th century, anthropologists from Europe and the West, in the US, have studied every culture, every single surviving culture from around the world. And this is a fact.
From the time frame you just said.
Yes.
So a tiny, tiny fraction of the cultures that have ever existed.
I feel like we're getting kind of like stuck in the mud a little bit. I think Root had like a bigger point to be made rather than than the specifics that they're going into.
Okay.
Yeah, my point was that first I said that all cultures had a creation story. They all believe that their existence and the existence of the universe came from something that was uncreated and is the source for all things, which is God. May said, oh, there's no way for us to possibly know that, right? Because we haven't studied all cultures that's ever existed. And again, I agree with you. We haven't studied all cultures that's ever existed.
Well, sure,
but why do you keep saying all cultures?
Wait, but hold on, Mace. Hold on. Like, so generally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's not where you're going with this, because I kind of want to further the conversation a little bit. Are you trying to argue because you also said earlier, there's some type of creation story and there's some type of deity or deities, if we're being like honest about the multiple cultures that exist and which have been studied, right? That then, at the end of the day, there's an idea that there's a higher being other than ourselves, which resulted in our creation. And is this some type of argument for God or something that you're trying to make based off of this?
Yeah, I was gonna connect first. I was gonna address all of Mace Starwalker's points that he was trying to make. So yeah, we do have evidence that it is part of human culture, human psychology, just as language is part of human culture, right? That the belief in a higher power, in a higher existence, right? And just like how organized religion is created from civilization, right? The idea, the belief that there is no God, that we are just here, that we don't we're not connected to the universe whatsoever, or our consciousness is created in the brain. These are all new beliefs. These are all new ideas. These aren't the status quo. So I want to ask you guys, right? I want to ask you guys, if you guys have no reason to believe that God doesn't exist. I mean, that God does exist. You have no reason to believe that. You have no reason to believe that God doesn't exist, right?
Well,
and every other culture historically believed in a God. So why don't you, since you have no opinion on the matter, revert to the status quo?
Well, for me, I guess I'll go first. And I say, like, the difference between all those civilizations, even the civilizations we don't know that existed, which may or may have not believed in a singular deity or multiple deities, right? The difference between us and them is ignorance. They were generally stupider or lacked knowledge that we do today, that certain things happen, right? Because even within recent human history, there were civilizations that believed there was a man or some type of higher being on a chariot pulling the sun, all right? Which we know isn't the case, right? And there was a time where many people believed, like even within Greek mythology and other different viewpoints, where there was a god for everything. There was a god for the grass. There was a god for the sky. There was a god for, or goddess for all these different things. But as we as a species have become more educated, we understand that there is no grass god, there's no sky god, there's no chariot deity up out there pulling the sun. All those things are just how our universe works. So the more knowledge we get, the more and more God becomes irrelevant,
Eli?
because we understand that there is no God out there, which is doing those specific things, at least not in the material sense that we can find. So that's why I personally think it's not unreasonable, especially in a world today where we have so much knowledge and evidence which goes against such an idea of a divine deity, for me to be an irreligious agnostic. There's no reason for this to be an absurdity based off of your specific argument.
Interesting. Okay, so you said that the reason why that you don't want to revert to the status quo is because in the past, the cultures that used to exist, right, or still exist, some of them, were ignorant. We're better than them, right? But let me ask you a question, because I actually do agree with you. Scientifically, we are much more intelligent than they are. We understand much more about the universe than they do. But simultaneously, at the same time, we are still extremely ignorant on how the universe actually fundamentally operates. So it is kind of irrational to say that just because we understand 5% more of the universe, how it actually works, therefore we can just dismiss everything that they believed, right? And you sort of strawman what my argument was before. My argument was that the common denominator for all previous existing cultures was the belief in a creation. It was the belief that the universe and their existence was created by something that was uncreated. That was my argument, and that remains true. Not all cultures believed in the flying chariots like you're talking about. Not all cultures believed in Poseidon and all these other myths. These myths were created specifically for whatever cultures they're in, right? To serve purposes like to educate the children, to make them afraid of certain in Abrahamic religions, right? The snake is tied to like evil, right? And we tell children to be afraid of the serpent, right? When we're teaching them in Sunday schools. Yeah, that makes sense because serpents are actually dangerous. Serpents do kill people. These myths have a reason.
I wasn't.
Wait.
I wasn't.
Let me tie back to what you said.
Sure.
So, again, there are ancient beliefs that don't believe in any of these myths that you're talking about, right? There are ancient religions that don't believe any of these myths that you're talking about, like Buddhism. Buddhism does not believe in flying chariots, right? They believe that the universe is always existed and the universe is God.
Yeah, but I think you misunderstood if that's all you're taking away from what I was saying. I'm not saying that every culture had that specific belief. And I think it's also a kind of a claim on your part to just suggest it was a story rather than an actual belief system of what was happening, right? But nevertheless, I think overall, right, there's certain ideas, and specifically since we're just addressing God here, right, there's a deity and deities which were believed by different cultures. That's the point. This idea of a higher being was held collectively within certain societies because of ignorance. Generally,
Okay. I don't believe it's because of ignorance.
Root coach, can I get a word in? So root coach, what is it? You can go, and then boy demon can go, and then you can go back. We gotta get our final points in, and we're gonna end the debate. So what is it? You go, root coach, and then boy demon can go as well. You could go back since you're the only one here representing your side, and then Mace can go afterwards if he wants. So just to get the final points in before the debate ends. But thank you guys for coming out. I'm just saying.
Okay. I think it's kind of. I think people use science a lot to try and debunk God when they don't really understand what is actually science. Science is not in the realm of discussing whether or not God exists. Science is in the realm of observing natural phenomenon, right, and predicting it, right, and coming to a explanation on why it works, and an explanation that's good enough to be predictable. That is all science is created for. It's not created to basically answer what God is and where God comes from. So in that regards, science, just because we have more scientific knowledge doesn't mean that we are more awakened or enlightened than these people from the past. Considering we have the exact same brains, our neurons work exactly the same way, right? And their conclusions on whether or not, okay, I actually have a lot of arguments, but there's not enough time for that. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, let's go real quick. So overall, I think throughout this discussion, we've kind of seen some of the criticisms which I made at the beginning of my statement be represented throughout the arguments on the other side. And I think I'll just say, in reference to a more atheist versus theist perspective or secular position versus more theistic viewpoint, is that there's nothing inherently wrong with holding either view, but I believe you need to make more mental, you have to do more mental gymnastics to get to one viewpoint than the other. And that's all I'll keep it.
Okay. All right, root coach, you want to reply back, and then Mace can
let me reply to that. I think you have to do more mental gymnastics to believe that the universe exists without a God, because how are you going to explain all these phenomena that's unexplained, and how are you going to come to some sort of okay, I'll just leave it at that. There is, if you say that God doesn't exist, right, you're gonna be subscribing to the ideology of reductionism, where you're gonna reduce everything, every single phenomenon that is unexplained. You're gonna be like, there is a explanation for that, right? Once we understand once we understand all the mysteries of quantum mechanics, right, you're gonna be like, okay, whatever makes a Higgs boson, where theists would say God is the foundation of our reality. Your ideology is that the foundation of reality is infinitely reducing into smaller parts. So I feel like you're gonna have to do more mental gymnastics to constantly try to find an explanation for the unexplainable than to just say that God exists.
All right. So, Mace, you want to have any final like points, words, anything else?
Yeah. First of all, I reject his usage of the term all cultures. I think that's misleading and perhaps even deliberately so, because he already admitted that when he says all cultures, he doesn't mean all cultures. And secondly, I reject the idea that theism is the default. I think people are not born automatically with an active belief in a god. I think if you were to give birth to a new human being and just send them out into the wild and they had no human contact, there is no way that you'd find them as an adult later on and they'd suddenly have a god belief. That would have to be passed to them by another human. And yeah, that's my response.
Gotcha. Well, guys, I'm gonna be probably in chill. BC, if you want to continue the conversation there, but I'm gonna end the BC. So, hey, guys, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Rucoats, Mace, RW, and boy Damien, even though he's not here, and like Sifis. What is it? As and everybody else that was here before. For being part of this conversation. So I hope you have a wonderful day.
All right, that's pretty much the end of that. Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Yo, I'm still live.
Wait.
Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm still live, by the way.
Why is your camera turned off?
Who, mine?
No, like for some reason I had like the turn off your camera on my end. I don't know why.
Oh, my camera wasn't on in the Discord, but it's on in the stream.
I feel you.
Root Coach, your arguments were dumb. No, I'm just kidding. You did all right.
They did pretty good.
You guys did all right.
I like I like this conversation. Honestly, it was
at least it was chill.
It was chill. I liked how productive it was, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like everybody let everybody else take a turn, and I think that's kind of like where I want things to go. To be honest.
Well, that's good.
Damn, how many people do I have staff and stuff? Jesus Christ.
All right. Yo, anybody want to challenge me to a debate? Let me know. About anything.
So wait, King Sithis, so what do you think about God? Like, what's your opinions?
Oh, I don't know if God is real.
Okay. Well, why do you say that?
Because there's no evidence.
I mean, what kind of evidence are you looking for?
Something demonstrable, scientific, some maybe logical.
Okay.
Something based in reality.
Something based in reality. Yep.
Okay. So
I'm live, by the way. What Coach, is just letting you know?
Okay, you're live. Okay, yeah. That's fine. That's fine. So, what's your explanation for consciousness?
I don't have one. It kind of just appears in our brain when we're born.
I do.
Okay, what's your explanation? Incarnation.
It's the culmination of our brain's evolution into a higher form of intelligence.
Okay. So, I agree. I agree with evolution. Evolution creates a more conscious entity. And I want to define consciousness as the ability to experience reality, right?
Yeah, the ability, the fact that you know that you're alive, essentially.
No,
Yes.
that's
I
self
am.
consciousness.
I know, therefore,
I know, therefore I
as a
am.
great Greek philosopher once said, I am. I know, therefore I am. That's consciousness to me, and you can only do that. We can only attain that as humans because our brains have evolved to the point where we can understand these concepts.
Yeah, that is just self consciousness, right? And I do agree, self consciousness is created by evolution, but I don't believe ever consciousness is inherently created by random processes, right? So wait, let me ask you a question.
Do you have
How
any
did the
evidence that it
first
isn't?
yes, because I exist. Wait, let me ask you a question. How did the first inorganic matter turn into a conscious like cell or something?
I don't know.
But again, this goes back down to what we were initially saying here. Consciousness is a result, at least in my opinion, and I think most people would, well, and maybe not most, but a lot of people would agree with this. Consciousness is being aware of your surroundings, if you will, in an innate fashion, and that is a direct result of intelligence. There are very few animals who you could say that would have consciousness. Dolphins are one of them. They are incredibly intelligent animals. So are elephants. They are aware of their surroundings in ways that other animals simply are not.
All right, so Root Coach, I got a question for you. All right, brother. So, do you believe that believing in God is a faith-based thing, or do you feel like there's evidence to substantiate that for God, like the existence of a God?
I mean, we have different types of evidence, right? We don't just use scientific evidence to explain everything. If I had a religious experience, that's evidence. That's not scientific evidence, but that is evidence that I could use to say that God exists, right?
Yeah,
but we also have philosophical evidence.
Yeah. Let me stop you on that first example. Let's just go one by one, if that's all right, Root Coach. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So when you're talking about, say, like an anecdotal experience, right? You can have an anecdotal experience that could very well be true. So, for instance, if you woke up one day and you say you saw a ghost, it could very well be true. I will admit that. But there's no possible way for me to verify what you've seen in your head, right?
Sure.
Right? Yeah. So you would need something more than simply a witness testimony to prove something that has never been proven to exist in the world ever, right?
That's not necessarily true, because I mean, first you have to prove something exists to other people. You have to prove it exists to yourself first, correct?
Yeah, of course.
So, if I had a religious experience, right? That is enough evidence to me to support that God exists.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about like for you. I'm talking about like, so you're trying to convince me that God exists, right?
Yeah.
So how can you verify to me that your anecdotal experience is true without simply telling me?
I mean, like I said, I don't have to verify it to you, because that anecdotal experience, right, is mostly for me. It's mostly to confirm God's existence to me, because like you said, there's no way of me transferring my experience to you and you like living it out.
Yeah.
But
aren't you trying to convince me using your anecdotal experience
that
God is real?
That's not what I'm trying.
That's not what you're trying to do? Okay.
No.
So
we're talking.
I was gonna say before. Wait, let me just say this.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say before. Anecdotal evidence is evidence, right? That is used for me for God's existence. But there's more evidence that we can use for God's existence, like philosophical evidence.
See, it's evidence to you, right? There's evidence to you, but it's not evidence to us because we can't verify it, correct?
Okay, wait. Let's just make one thing clear here. I think it's important to clarify some of the terms you're using, right? Evidence. Okay, well, and we'll stick with reality here. And what I mean by reality is we have to flesh out these concepts with things that we use innately in reality. So evidence is something that is repeatable, right? It's important that it is repeatable. If it is not repeatable, it is not evidence. It's repeatable, and you can calculate it, and you can make a conclusion with it. That is evidence. Like, it's important that is this, we operate on the same standard.
No, I actually disagree. That is
Anecdotal
scientific evidence. That is scientific evidence.
No,
right?
it doesn't have
Evidence
to be
is
scientific.
not inherently
but
has to be repeatable.
The difference between scientific evidence and say something like an anecdotal experience, like a spiritual anecdotal experience, is you can't verify a anecdotal experience to another person. Whereas
Sure,
a scientific,
I agree with that.
Whereas a scientific explanation, if I say I have a scientific explanation for why this does, why X, Y does Y, right? I could show you the evidence that I have to explain why X does Y, right? But with an anecdotal experience, you can't explain to me why X does Y, right?
Sure, I agree with you. I agree
So
with you.
it's evidence to you, but it can't be used to convince another person.
I think it can be used to convince another person, but like I said before, it's primarily used for the individual that had the religious experience.
Yes, I know, but we need
for-
something
to
more than
prove
that.
they exist. Okay, wait. Let me ask you a question. If anecdotal experiences, right, or anecdotal evidence is such a unreliable or not useful, then why do we send people to prisons based on anecdotal evidence? Why do we use anecdotal evidence in court?
Because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So, for instance, a murder claim is not really extraordinary because murders happen all the time. And in most courts, we don't simply use witness testimony. There has to be some sort of other piece of evidence that has to coincide with the witness testimony to verify that witness testimony. So we do not, in most courts, we do not simply just arrest somebody based off of a witness testimony. There has to be something else that has to verify that witness testimony.
We arrest
as well.
people. We arrest people.
I mean, we don't
arrest people based on witness testimony. We don't put people in jail or formally
yes,
charge
you
people
are correct.
based on
Yes.
witness testimony.
Sorry about that. Yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sure.
and the
part of
reason,
that is,
and
though,
would
to your
you,
point-
and also, Root Coach, would you think that? Do you think that's okay? Let's say, I said, Root Coach stabbed me. Should the police simply believe me because I'm giving them anecdotal evidence? Don't you think that we should have a more higher standard of evidence simply other than a witness testimony?
I think police should go and investigate.
Yeah.
If you say somebody stabbed you, police should go and investigate.
Yeah. So
right?
you think we should have something more than simply a witness testimony, right? In order to charge somebody.
Yeah, I
absolutely,
yeah,
right, absolutely, yeah. So
definitely.
that's how we feel about God. You know what I'm saying? We need something more than a witness testimony.
Yeah,
because
like
an
I said before,
that's what that is.
Like,
you know?
Yeah. Like I said before, anecdotal evidence is mainly used for the person that actually experienced it, right? For evidence that
yeah. So do you have anything other than witness testimony to believe?
Just wait. But I want to clarify that anecdotal evidence is still valuable, right? Whether or not it's a religious experience.
I'm not saying anecdotal evidence is never. I'm not saying that anecdotal evidence is never good or never could be used. If you giving in your anecdotal story to, and it's also has, like, for instance, let's say I'm walking down the street and I see somebody stab somebody, right? And that guy runs away. When the police come to me, they're going to ask me my witness testimony. I'm going to give them my witness testimony. You know what I'm saying? That is valuable. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be useful towards the larger case. Obviously, they're not just going to simply take my word for it, but it is still useful. So I'm not saying all anecdotal things are not useful. What I'm saying is when you're going to prove something, especially an extraordinary claim like something spiritual, such as there being a God, something that has never been seen before by others, there has to be something more than a witness testimony, correct?
Yeah, if you try and prove it to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rudcock, let me ask you a question. I just want to ask you a question, okay? This is just because it's going to kind of help this conversation a little bit. What answers do you need a God for?
There is so much answers to that question. For one, consciousness. Where is the origin of consciousness? Where is the origin of the universe? How does all these fundamental laws of the universe that are kind of created for life to exist, where do they come from?
Okay, so that is a legitimate reason as to why you should, maybe seek God to answer your questions. I mean, consciousness is already kind of fairly easy to figure out. It's just we're intelligent beings. That is why and how we got to where we are. There's enough evidence, non-anecdotal. There's enough evidence to suggest that we've evolved to where we are, and consciousness is a result of our evolution. So we have an answer. We don't need to see God for that one, like in my opinion.
I think you're kind of mistaken. Intelligence is the result of our evolution. Consciousness isn't.
Consciousness is an emergent property of intelligence.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, 100% it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, our brains are. 100% it is. Consciousness is 100% a direct result.
Yeah,
of
what
our
would make you,
intelligence.
Coach? What would make you think that isn't the truth?
There are conscious. Like I said, what is consciousness? The ability to experience reality, right?
Yeah, kind of
It is
knowing
not.
you're alive.
You need evolution for that.
To know that you're alive is a form of self-consciousness, right? To experience reality is just consciousness, and there are organisms, for example, bacteria that are not intelligent, that fungus not intelligent, single cell organisms that have a little bit more intelligence than bacteria, but are still nowhere near intelligent as animals, plants, or even human beings. These things are all conscious.
Yes, but to be self-aware is to realize you are thinking and to think about your thoughts. This is an innate thing that is that we have because we are highly intelligent beings. Like the consciousness as you're describing it is a result of our intelligence.
Like I said, self-consciousness is
That's
the result
self-awareness.
of our intelligence. Consciousness is not. The first conscious entities on planet Earth were not intelligent.
One at a time, guys.
So I just want to say, self-consciousness, as you're describing it, is referred to as self-awareness. Okay, and self-awareness is knowing that you are alive. Animals don't have that. Animals are alive. They don't know that they're alive or dead. They're just there. Whereas humans, because of our ability, because of our the track of our evolution, we've become highly intelligent beings, and we've grown into a being that is self-aware. That self-awareness is a direct result of our intelligence, not some omnipotent being that gave us this. At least in my opinion.
It's really cooler because we know that other animals are also subconscious, like octopuses, dolphins, elephants.
Intelligent animals, yeah, I agree. Animals that we know are very intelligent have these characteristics as well.
Yeah, I don't agree with what your definition is. You're trying to equate consciousness and self-awareness when those aren't the two different things. Like I said at the start, consciousness is just the ability to experience reality.
Okay, but every being alive, okay, whether it's an animal, whether it's a plant,
yes, all of them are consciousness.
Not every being, okay, but then that's not an innate quality of God. That's just an innate quality of life.
Yeah, it is an innate quality of God because there is no way, right, for consciousness to come to existence by itself. It has to be a derivative of a conscious entity.
How do you know that?
At the foundation.
How did entity get consciousness then?
Okay,
like
I said before,
somewhere that's not conscious.
Okay,
right?
Where does God come from?
The whole concept of God is something that it didn't come from anywhere. Something that's always been here and always is infinite and has always existed.
Well, can't I say that about the universe?
Big Bang, the universe,
yeah.
what came before the Big Bang. I mean, if that's gonna be the line of reasoning that we're taking to say that there is a God no matter what, then I can take that exact same line of thought and say, well, that's why the Big Bang exists. We don't know. We don't know.
Because we don't really know what happened before the Big Bang. All we could say is, I could say, use your same logic to be like, oh, what came before the Big Bang simply just was always there.
I'm saying logically, right? It's you can't use this ideology of reductionism of constantly saying that before the Big Bang there was this, before the Big Bang there was this, before the Big Bang there was this. You have to reach a point, because that's a form of circular logic right there. You have to reach a point where you have to say that before the Big Bang or before reality came to existence, there was something that already existed.
Okay, we can say that about the Big Bang.
We're
We
not
could say
s-
something
we're
existed
not.
before the Big Bang.
Exactly. No. You do realize when you say that, okay, before the Big Bang, this thing existed, right? Unless you accept that whatever existed before the Big Bang is God, right? Then you're gonna be following this loop of reductionism of constantly saying that there is something that came before this one thing.
Well, sure, we can call
Right.
it God, but that doesn't make it a conscious or infinite thing.
Yeah, it does. If
No, it doesn't.
All we're
God
saying
is
is,
inherently
right,
infinite.
we don't know what happened before the Big Bang. None of us know what happened before the Big Bang. It's impossible to know. We could say
Just
it's
like
a
none of
God.
us.
You could say it's a
Yeah,
God.
exactly.
You could say
Exactly.
it was a natural phenomenon. We have absolutely no idea. So when you say it's a God, when you make a claim and say, oh, it was a God, and then you use this line of reasoning to say that this is the God by basically saying he was always there, we could use that same line of reasoning, because we both don't know, to claim that, oh, whatever created the God, Big Bang naturally simply was always there. Right?
Exactly. So we both agree that there is something that came before the Big Bang, right? That it wasn't created. That's always existed.
I'm not agreeing.
Well-
What we're saying is we don't know, and what we're saying, if what you're saying is true, it could be used for it could be used to explain a supernatural experience, or it could be used to explain a material experience. We don't know which way, so we're not going to say we do until we have the evidence.
Okay. I remember the guy in the debate accused me of using mental gymnastics to explain my beliefs, right? If you're constantly looking for evidence to prove that God doesn't exist, right? You're gonna continuously try to come up with new explanations, right? That try to explain the unexplainable.
See, I disagree with that reasoning, because I don't think anybody who objectively researches this thinks that they're looking for an answer that God doesn't exist. They're just looking for an answer. If that answer so happens to be a God exists, then anybody who's objectively honest will accept that answer.
Mm-hmm. But the
Right?
thing is,
But-
there
but-
isn't any evidence, so we're not going to say there is until we find it.
Yeah, but we're also
Yeah,
not going to
okay,
say there isn't,
all right,
and that's
all right.
important.
Yeah.
And that's an important caveat. And I've spoken to many people who study, deep astrophysics, and I'm talking about stuff that's billions of light years away. And if you ask them whether or not they believe there is a God, their answer will be there could be.
Yeah. And hey, man, I would love for there to be a heaven, you know what I'm saying, and an afterlife and all that stuff to be proven to me. But I'm not skeptical because I don't want to believe or this and this and that. There simply isn't any evidence that is good enough to substantiate the existence of God. So until we have that evidence, we're just going to hold our beliefs until it reveals itself to us.
And another thing I kind of dislike is that the only way we're going to get evidence is by dying, which, well,
you can't come back after
kind of
that.
defeats the purpose of.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, well, when you die, you're going to find heaven and you're going to find God. Well, that kind of doesn't help me today when I'm trying to get my answers when I'm alive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. I feel like you guys are trying to whatever you keep asking for. Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? We're having a philosophical debate here, right? We're not having a scientific debate because for all that we
Philosophy
know,
is a form of science.
just wait. For all
you
we
can use logical evidence. Like you could try to.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, King, let him finish. Let
Sorry.
him finish.
Go ahead.
Okay, for all we know, our scientific knowledge has already discovered the existence of God, right? We just haven't realized it yet. So I'm not trying to have a scientific debate here. We're having a philosophical debate, right? And all I'm saying is that if you try to say that that there is always something that came before something else, that is a form of circular logic. It is a form of reductionism, and it is just doesn't make sense. Logically, doesn't make sense, right? There's always has to be something that existed and that is infinite, that is the origin of all things, right? That is one of my reasons for why God exists. The next reason is that the existence of consciousness has to be created by God.
So I think
I'm gonna
calling it circular.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I think you
You're
misunderstand
calling
our
you
point, which is that.
Let Wobblies.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know he was
talk. He's
talking.
a
Go
little-
ahead.
Yeah, he's a little low on the sound.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to say that we're using circular logic, or that circular logic can't be used while also using circular logic.
That's not circular logic.
No,
if I say
always existed, it's circular.
No, it's the source.
Yes. Right, which is circular. So you're relying on something that has no source, because it is the source itself. So it's circular. So no matter how far back we go, it's always going to become this circular logic. So trying to point out that circular logic is bad isn't really useful in this discussion, because no matter where we go, it's going to end up that way.
I also want to just point out one thing, that in science, the first step of any experiment is a philosophical question. Mm-hmm. It always starts from philosophy and then moves into experiments. But philosophy is not religious. It is, if anything, anti-religious. It is trying to find answers to questions that were in the time trying to be answered by religion. But philosophy is an innate characteristic of science, and it is the first step in a scientific experiment is a philosophical question.
Sure, I agree with that. Religion as a organized faith is not in the realm of philosophy, right? You can't question if you're a Christian. You can't question whether or not Jesus is died on the cross, whether or not Jesus died for your sins. Otherwise, you're not a Christian. There is no room for debate. But God predates organized religion. The existence of God predates all organized faiths and is actually part of philosophy. But Wobbles, I actually agree with you. You did make a good point that if I say God is the origin of all things, that you're correct. That is a form of circular logic. But I want you.
I'm not calling it bad. Circular logic.
Yeah. Okay, that is a form of circular logic. But what makes more sense to you? To constantly try to come up with a new explanation for the unexplainable, right? Trying to say that once we reach a certain realm, a certain level of knowledge of the universe, and we come to the conclusion that it did not come from anywhere, it's always been here, right? But because we come in to the debate with the assumption that God doesn't exist and everything is explainable, what makes more sense? To constantly go down the loop of trying to continuously explain something that's unexplainable, or to just say God created it?
To continuously go down the loop.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask you
Wait.
something.
What is
Why would you not try to
Occam's
search
razor?
for the knowledge of that? What the hell? Why would you just want to
Occam's razor is when you have an easy answer to something that is otherwise complicated, you would stick to the easy answer. That is what it is. So in the case of, I don't know, let's say, why is there life? Well, the easy answer to that is that how do plants live? The easy answer to that is plants use the sun to survive, right? There is obviously a much more convoluted answer to that, but the Occam's razor to that, the simplest answer to that question is that it needs the sun. It's already explained. It already makes sense. We don't need to overcomplicate it. That's Occam's razor. You use the simplest answer.
See, because even if we were to use your logic, so like even if we were to use your logic that like the God has always existed, and we could use that explanation for whatever came before the Big Bang has always existed, the one with the least amount of variables added on to that explanation is the one that is going to be most likely, because God isn't simply just it's just one explanation. You guys also believe that God, he not only did he create the universe and he's always been here, but he believes this thing and he believes that thing, and he also thinks that you should do this and not do that. You know what I mean? So obviously the thing with the least amount of variables we're gonna think is a better explanation.
Yeah. Also, Occam's razor needs to have an answer to be applied. Like you can't apply something to Occam's razor to something too. You can't apply Occam's razor, but if there's something you already have an answer to, and there is an easy way and a complicated way to explain it, the easy way comes first.
Okay. King Sithis, my definition of God was just something. It was a force that is the origin of all things. I don't even believe God is a person. I don't believe he has a personality, right? I just believe that God is the source from which all things come from.
Do you think that like if you, so are you Christian or what? Like, what are you religiously?
No, I'm not. I'm not really part of any organized religion.
Okay, so you just believe in God. You don't think he has anything.
Yeah.
You don't think you believe in heaven or anything like that?
No, I don't believe in heaven.
Okay, so you just believe in God.
Yep.
Hey, you know who my God is?
Who's
you know? You guys want to know who my God is? Gravity.
No, but I guess what I was gonna say was
gravity. Gravity is my God.
I guess what I was gonna say was that like when it comes to people who believe in God, right? It isn't simply just God exists for most people. Now, if you believe that, then you know that's you. I guess it doesn't apply to you then. You know what I mean?
I mean, look, all organized religions, right? No matter where they're from, that is actually the foundations. What I believe is the foundations of all organized faiths, in the belief that
but where do you go from there? You know, from
like,
there.
For real, I'm trying to.
How does that change? Like if God doesn't have, and it's just simply the explanation for the universe, and he doesn't have any characteristics, no beliefs, no heaven, no hell. How does that change it? How does that change like my everyday life? Like what? How does that make my life any different from what it was yesterday?
I think it changes the perspective that people have today, right? It is a new perspective that consciousness starts in the mind, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just created in the mind, and it's a function of our biology. That's not true, right? If you believe that God exists, you would also have to believe that consciousness comes from God also.
Yeah, but that doesn't really, I don't think that really answers my question. My question was that like how does that really like change my day-to-day life? Like let's say I was to take on your ideology and say, hey God is the explanation for the universe, but I don't adopt any other religious principles other than that. How does that like change my day-to-day life?
Okay, I believe that people should adopt religious principles based on the individual, not part of any like nobody should just follow a certain doctrine. You should create the doctrine that fits your life. But the way it would change your perspective on everyday life is that you would see things, you would see that you are more connected to the universe, right? And more connected to other life forms than what you originally thought. For example, if you just believe that consciousness just starts from, and your consciousness just is a function of the human biology, right? Mm-hmm. You would believe that that you're just a brain in a box, sort of. You're just like a brain in a skull. That is you, right? You're not connected to the animals. You're not connected to plants. You're not connected to the rest of the universe. You're just like you're sort of just a computer program.
I mean, I'm connected to the universe from an atomic standpoint. I mean, we're all particles.
Yeah, but that again, that doesn't change anything. That doesn't really change my perspective on anything. Like, I'm not going to be nicer. I'm not going to be ruder. I'm not going to be trying to help the environment or anything. I'm not like that.
I think he just describing it so bad.
You just all you're doing is giving me an explanation for the universe, and then from that, now what? Okay, does God think I should do this? Does God do this? Does God believe this? No, I don't know. Okay, well, then I guess I'm just going to live my life the way I wasn't before.
Like, all I hear from that is just God of the universe. Yeah. And then you be like, and then you're trying to say, like, oh, we're connected to the universe. How? By God. Like, then what the fuck? That doesn't help me. That's just a word that adds on to something that you want an explanation for. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. Like, that's
I mean, like, what kind of help are you looking for?
No, because, bro, I don't know. The way how you're just like the way how you see God is just so confusing.
No, what he's trying to say, what he's trying to say is that your explanation of God isn't going to help him in any way.
Yeah, it actually might. One of the most obvious ones is that like human beings have been afraid of death forever. That's been probably the single most biggest fear of every single human.
Yeah.
Or generally every single human is afraid to die.
So do you believe there's an afterlife?
Do I believe your consciousness survives death? Yes.
How is that any different than what I just said?
So, all right. So where does it go after that? Because that basically
is there an afterlife? Is like, do you die? Like when your body dies, does your consciousness go anywhere, or is that it?
Like what happens?
Okay.
To your consciousness?
I'll give you an analogy. When you die, your body returns to the earth. Correct? You just
And
become
then
a
what?
part of nature. That's where your body goes. You're just a part of
How do
the
you know
matters.
that?
The matter that made up your body is now is now part of a tree. Is now part of a what do you call it? A bird. Is now the rivers that flow down the stream. That's the same thing for your consciousness. Your consciousness goes back to where it comes from.
So how do you
No,
know that?
but we're trying to find out what happens though. Like,
Yeah, like
what
what
do you
happens to
see
us?
then?
What happens to
You can't answer that because you got to die to answer
Like,
that.
okay, so like when you die, does
No,
everything just go blank? Does everything just go blank, or do we become something? Do we go somewhere? Like what?
Okay, the best way to answer this is, you know, when people have psychedelic experiences, right? And they
Yes.
say that they're part of the universe, right? They don't really have the words to explain what they felt, right? But they say that they're part of the universe, they're part of the collective consciousness, right? They're not who they were before. They're not their own individual identity. That is what's going to happen. Well, that's what I believe.
I know what this man is saying. He just describing this so shitly. All right, because what the fuck? I feel like you thinking like this. Like, this is the concept I'm going to give to you, and then you could tell me if it's somewhat of your thing. Like, you know how... Wait, do you take in some of the things that the Bible or the Quran or any other religious things say about the afterlife? Do you, like, look into that and actually see, like, if... Like, do you take into that or no?
I mean, the Bible does say that. I think the verse is from ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? Means that you go back to where your body would go back to where it comes from, and so would your soul.
That did not answer my question whatsoever. I'm sorry.
Well, at least, for me, that this is perfectly. You've perfectly described my reality, which is that we go back to where we came from. Consciousness is a product of intelligence. Therefore, our consciousness goes with our bodies back to ash. Like that to me perfectly described what happens to us when we die.
No, okay. What you believe is that our consciousness just disappears. We get deleted from reality. That's not true. We don't just get deleted
what
from
I
reality.
believe, what I've told you is that consciousness is a direct result of our intelligence. Our intelligence is biological in nature. So if our biology dies and our body turns back to ashes, so too does our consciousness. Because our consciousness, in my opinion, and I would say in most people's opinion, is a direct result of our intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay, so you believe our consciousness after we die is completely destroyed because our biology is destroyed.
Yes.
Absolutely. Our consciousness is a byproduct of our biology.
Okay, that's where we disagree. I don't believe our consciousness is a byproduct of our biology. I believe our consciousness is tied to our biology, right? But once our biology dies, just like how our bodies go back to where they came from, which is the earth, our consciousness goes back to where it comes from, which is the universe.
I think you're talking
See,
about...
I think the disconnect between us is that you see consciousness as some form of spirituality, and I don't. Right? I don't see consciousness as some form of spirituality. I just see consciousness as a result of our intelligence, and I think that's the biggest difference between my idea of consciousness and your idea of consciousness. Yours is spiritual in nature.
And I feel that.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like bro like misusing words like with consciousness with soul and all that, because you're talking about it leaving the body and all the other mess. I feel like that's the soul that's gonna leave the body when we die and all that. Because that's what's everlasting and all that, but we're not talking about me.
All right, is that it?
Yeah. Do you guys have any other questions?
No, man, that was it. That was it.
Yeah, I got a question.
I think I got out of my system.
What's your question?
So, you think consciousness goes somewhere after we die, and it comes from some place, but how do we get it?
How do we get it?
Yeah, like, because it seems to me like you don't think that the body is required to have consciousness, right?
It is required for us to have our own individual consciousness. Yeah, if our own individual personality is required by the body.
So then what do you think consciousness is?
consciousness is just the experience. Is just the ability to experience things.
Okay, so then how do we experience? Like, what do you mean by experience things? I guess because a dog experiences things, right? Like,
Yeah,
is a
that's
dog
true.
conscious?
That's true. That's true. Yes, a dog's conscious.
Okay, so a dog's conscious. So that when a dog dies, its consciousness goes where our consciousness also goes.
Do dogs go to heaven?
Yeah. Like I said, there is no heaven, but yeah, in a way, the dog's consciousness, right, goes back to where it came from, which is the same place where our consciousness comes from, which is the universe.
All right.
Okay, so to me, it sounds like you're a pantheist, but I'm not sure if you accept the title. So
Yeah, I'm not sure if I accept the title as well. But the only reason why I say this, right, is because, like I said before the start of the conversation, right, is that our consciousness comes from God, and God is the basis of our entire reality, right? So after our bodies die, right, our consciousness goes back to to the basis of reality, which is where it came from.
right.
Gotcha. All right, man.
It's interesting.
That's that?
All right. Yeah, that's it. Sweet.
All right, man. I'm probably gonna upload this as a YouTube video. So, this conversation we
All
just
good,
had,
all
is
good.
that cool with you? Okay, cool. All right, man. It was good